Chapter 321. Gu Beiwei had come to see Emperor Tianhui early in the morning to discuss Han Yunqi's treatment of Bailey Mingxiang. As the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard, he'd long received news of Emperor Tianhui's orders for Han Yunqi to go to the Western Mountains to treat the Empress. According to the rules, he was supposed to make arrangements for Han Yunqi's departure after the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. But he hadn't made any arrangements yet, and Emperor Tianhui hadn't asked about the matter either. Gu Beiwei was very clear that Emperor Tianhui's lack of questions didn't mean the matter was over. Emperor Tianhui dreaded Long Fei Ye's display of strength at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, which was why he hadn't forced Han Yunqi. Meanwhile, General Bailey had come to seek treatment right after the banquet on Long Fei Ye's orders. As the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard, Gu Beiwei had kept himself aloof from the internal struggles of the imperial harem. Naturally, he had his own wisdom. He could see through everything. Now that Han Yunqi was going to the Western Mountains, Emperor Tianhui wouldn't ask her about it of his own accord, nor would Long Fei bring it up. The final decision rested in his hands as the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard. He was sandwiched between the two emperors. If he allowed the matter to pass quietly, he'd be the unlucky one in the end. Your Majesty, this is Miss Mingxiang's medical record. She's been ill for a long time. Multiple imperial physicians have failed to treat her, and my subordinates are useless as well. General Bailey begged esteemed Wang Fei to treat her and confirmed that she's been poisoned. It'll take some time to treat the poison, Gu Beiwei explained as he handed over the medical record. Emperor Tianhui took it and tossed it onto the table. Gu Beiwei, you mean to say that the Empress's illness isn't as important as Bailey Mingxiang? Your Majesty has clear judgment. This humble official absolutely didn't mean that. Gu Beiwei immediately kneeled down with a look of panic on his face. Emperor, General Bailey did not know that the Princess Consort was going to the West Mountains. General Bailey came to ask for medical treatment on the night of the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. He said that he wanted the Princess Consort to see if she was poisoned. So you agreed to his request? Emperor Tianhui asked sternly. This humble subject didn't think that Miss Mingxiang's poison would be so serious. I thought that esteemed Wang Fei would just prescribe some medicine, but I didn't think that it would take so long. Gu Beiwei's head was bowed. He looked humble and flustered, but his clear eyes were calm and unperturbed. You didn't think of that? Gu Beiwei. Then tell Jin, what should we do now? Emperor Tianhui said as he slammed the table, his rage rising to the skies. Gu Beiwei lowered his head even more. Your Majesty, please calm down. Forgive this minister for speaking frankly, but the Princess Consort is a poison doctor. She is good at detoxifying poisons and is not good at treating illnesses. The Empress Phoenix body is precious and cannot be treated carelessly. This humble subject knows a divine doctor who has done extensive research on mental illnesses. He is willing to serve esteemed Empress. Hear that. Gu Beiwei's words were so beautiful. Not only did he elevate the Empress, but he also gave Emperor Tianhui a way out. Long Fei Yi had already shown such an attitude. If Emperor Tianhui insisted on sending away Han Yunqi, heaven knows what Long Fei Yi would do next. Now Emperor Tianhui had lost all interest in sending away Han Yunqi. All he needed was a way out. Of course he could tell that Bailey Mingxiang's illness had been arranged by Long Fei Yi. He was planning to drag things out a bit longer before investigating the matter and severely punish Gu Beiwei for neglecting his duties. Then he'd use Gu Beiwei as a stepping stone to get out of the situation. Now things were good. Gu Beiwei had given him a way out while absolving himself of his crimes. Seeing Emperor Tianhui hesitate, Gu Beiwei added, esteemed Empress Phoenix body is precious and can't afford any mishaps. May your Majesty reconsider. See, now he'd given Emperor Tianhui another way out of the situation. It made it seem like Emperor Tianhui didn't care about esteemed Empress if he didn't agree to send someone else to the Western Mountains. Although Emperor Tianhui wasn't willing to let Gu Beiwei off the hook so easily, he still went with the flow. Looks like Jin overestimated Han Yunqi. Since that's the case, Jin won't count on her anymore. We'll do as you say. Emperor Tianhui's serious expression only made him look Hypocritical. Gu Beiwei had long gotten used to it. He raised his head and smiled faintly. Your Majesty is wise and brilliant. Very soon, news of this reached Long Fei Ye's ears. Gu Beiwei is quite smart. Long Fei Ye rarely praised anyone. Actually, neither he nor Bailey Yuanlong had given Gu Beiwei any instructions. Of course, if Gu Beiwei didn't take care of things properly this time, Long Fei Ye would push all the blame onto Gu Beiwei if Emperor Tianhui investigated and kicked him out as a scapegoat. Your Highness, last time you went to the Gu estate, Chu Shifeng probed. Last time, His Highness had taken advantage of Gu Beiwei's absence to pay a visit to the Gu estate. He hadn't said a word when he came back. Long Fei Yi remembered clearly that he'd seen Gu Beiwei's skills when he was tailing Han Yunqi in Medical City. He was certain he hadn't seen wrong. Gu Beiwei knew martial arts, and his skills weren't low either. He had to have a motive for hiding in Tianning. Just because he didn't discover anything last time at the Gu estate didn't mean he'd let it go. Long Fei Yi didn't reply, but a guard from the hidden pavilion arrived. Your Highness, we've found the whereabouts of the serpent fruit. Where? Long Fei Yi was clearly anxious. The serpent fruit was one of the ingredients in Mute Granny's antidote prescriptions. He'd been searching for the 3 ingredients ever since he saw the prescription from Han Yunqi. It's in Medicine Ghost Valley, in the hands of pill fiend Gu Qi Sha. The guard replied, Medicine Ghost Valley. Long Fei Yi muttered to himself as he gestured for the guard to withdraw. Your Highness, that old thing Gu Qi Sha isn't easy to deal with. Chu Shifeng hesitated. He remembered that His Highness had offended Gu Qi Sha when he brought esteemed Wang Fei to ask for medicine last time. It wouldn't be easy to get the serpent fruit from Gu Qi Sha's hands. Even if they tried to trade for it, they might not get it. Long Fei Ye's expression was indifferent. Cold, he said, go set a time and say that your lordship wants to challenge him to a duel. If your lordship wins, I'll hand over the serpent fruit. If I lose, he can set any conditions he wants. His Highness Duke of Qin was so domineering. Chu Shifeng was thrilled and couldn't help but look forward to Gu Qi Sha's reaction when he found out. He wanted to see his master and Gu Qi Sha fight and beat him to a pulp. How could someone as proud as Gu Qi Sha refuse a challenge? Yes, this subordinate will go right away. If they wanted to know Gu Qi Sha's reaction, they'd have to wait until Chu Shifeng returned. For the next few days, Long Fei Yi remained in his secret rooms at the hidden pavilion. Even the shadow guard had no idea what His Highness Duke of Qin was doing. Meanwhile, Han Yunqi had been visiting Bailey Mingxiang's estate for 3 days straight. During this time, she didn't give Bailey Mingxiang any medicine, but gave him a thorough examination. She read through all the records of the poisons Bailey Mingxiang had taken, then used the detox system to analyze them all. She was certain that the records left behind by the poison masters matched the system's analysis. Although she didn't want to admit it, she had to face reality. Long Fei Yi had asked her to poison Bailey Mingxiang, which was tantamount to slow murder. She wasn't related to Bailey Mingxiang in any way, but as a doctor, she couldn't bear to do such a thing. If possible, she hoped to find a way to cultivate Beauty's blood while preserving Bailey Mingxiang's life at the same time. After 3 days of interaction, Han Yunqi discovered that Bailey Mingxiang was not only gentle and magnanimous, but also extremely talented and well hidden. Whether it was the zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, or poetry, she was proficient in all of them. Her family's collection of paintings, calligraphy, and poetry numbered in the hundreds. Moreover, she was familiar with history and the art of war. Other noble young ladies formed cliques and factions to show off and compete with each other. But she brewed her own tea, brewed her own wine, and drank it in a leisurely and carefree manner. If a woman like this didn't have Beauty's blood to deal with, how stunning would she be? Leaving aside men, even women like Han Yunqi liked her. Currently, Han Yunqi was tasting Bailey Mingxiang's homemade grape wine. She liked it after a single taste. She didn't know much about wine, but she knew it tasted good. Your Highness, as long as you like wine, it's good. I've prepared 2 jugs, please accept them. Bailey Mingxiang's smile was always so gentle. Many thanks. Han Yunqi really liked the wine, so she didn't hold back. Your Highness, can you start taking the medicine today? Bailey Mingxiang had waited for 3 days. Although she didn't like to complain to His Highness, if Han Yunqi still didn't prescribe medicine, she could only ask her father to find His Highness. Han Yunqi raised her eyebrows and looked at her. After a long time, she said, "Wait until your poison flares up. I'll leave later." My poison flares up? Bailey Mingxiang didn't react for a moment. Han Yunqi said helplessly, "The time of your poison flares up is actually not irregular. There are a total of 37 chronic poisons in your body that will flare up at certain times. The 37 poisons are mixed together, so you can't figure out the pattern. In another hour, one of the poisons will flare up." Bailey Mingxiang was very shocked. It wasn't because of the poison flares up. She used to be very afraid of the poison flares up, but she had slowly gotten used to it over the years. It wasn't that she wasn't afraid of pain, but she was used to it. She was shocked by Han Yunqi's ability. Han Yunqi hadn't even checked her pulse for the past few days, but she could say it so accurately. "Don't worry, I'm not lying to you. I've prepared the painkillers for you. The poison that flares up this time is called cold poison. You'll be so cold that your entire body will hurt," Han Yunqi said as she wrote. She had to write down all 37 poisons that would flare up and indicate the time of their flares. Although it wouldn't be of much help to Bailey Mingxiang, it would at least let her know when she would be in so much pain that she wanted to die. Bailey Mingxiang naturally believed in Han Yunqi. She knew that the person that His Highness Duke of Qin put in an important position must have real talent. She prepared the painkillers and sat to the side to watch Han Yunqi write. However, when Han Yunqi finished writing, tears welled up in Bailey Mingxiang's eyes. Han Yunqi not only showed the pattern of each of the 37 poisons, she also wrote down the painkillers for each poison in great detail. There were several pages of it. Han Yunqi's hands were sore from writing. She waved her hands as she instructed, "Read it when you have nothing to do." There are many painkillers that have to be prepared in advance. Every bit of pain you can reduce is a good thing. "Qin Wangfei, you don't have to help me relieve the pain," Bailey Mingxiang said faintly, hiding the tears in her heart. Chapter 322. What? Aren't you afraid of pain? Han Yunqi asked with interest. "I'm afraid." Bailey Mingxiang was very honest. How could she not be afraid of pain? She had been in pain for more than 10 years. It wasn't that she wasn't afraid of pain. She was just used to it. She had lost her mother when she was young and was sent to the Tang sect to ingest poison to nourish her blood. No one had ever asked her if she was afraid or if it hurt. The most common sentence her father had told her was, "Mingxiang, soldiers have to be soldiers." None of her older sisters knew about the beauty's blood. They were all jealous that her father had placed her in an important position and sent her to the Tang sect. She didn't need to marry and could stay in General Bailey's estate to serve His Highness Duke of Qin. After so many years, she never thought that the first person to show concern for her would be His Highness Duke of Qin's official consort, Han Yunqi. "If you're afraid, then why are you still showing off?" Han Yunqi smiled. Bailey Mingxiang suddenly didn't know how to respond. Showing off? Fine. She admitted that Han Yunqi's words had struck a chord in her heart. Although she didn't want to admit it, she knew that she was showing off. But so what if she was showing off? Hadn't she persevered until now? Her life wouldn't be long. She thought that she should show off for the rest of her life. As they spoke, Bailey Mingxiang suddenly shivered. She had been fine before, but now she suddenly felt cold. The poison was acting up. She was all too familiar with this feeling. Soon, she would be so cold that her entire body would tremble uncontrollably. She made a prompt decision. "Esteemed Wangfei, please wait outside for a moment." Before she could finish speaking, Han Yunqi stood up. She didn't walk out, but silently lit the stove in the room. Then she poured a cup of hot water and dissolved the painkillers in it. She hadn't even shown it, but Han Yunqi had seen through her. "Esteemed Wangfei, I'm fine. Can you leave first?" She was actually still able to smile. Han Yunqi gave her a serious negative answer. No. Bailey Mingxiang just didn't want Han Yunqi to see her most embarrassed and unbearable side. Han Yunqi didn't leave. so she just smiled helplessly and didn't say much. She sat beside the stove, curled up her body, and rubbed her hands together to keep warm. At this time, the cold air had already begun to emerge from her feet and scalp, and gradually spread throughout her body. That feeling was as if a large basin of cold water was slowly poured over his head. The cold water slowly soaked his entire body and invaded every pore. Bailey Mingxiang curled up into a ball. Soon, his originally pale face turned purplish green. His lips were clearly bitten, but they were still pale and bloodless. Just how cold was it? However, under such circumstances, she was still able to maintain her last bit of rationality. She remained silent and did not utter a single word of Lang. If it was someone else, they might not be able to tell that she was in pain, but Han Yunqi could tell at a glance. She made a prompt decision. Lie down on the bed. I'll give you some acupuncture to keep you warm. The cold poison's coldness came from within the body, so no matter how much she tried to warm it, it would not dissipate. She could only start from within. Princess Consort, it's no use. I know my own body. Bailey Mingxiang's lips were clearly trembling, but she was still able to smile. Her smile was gentle, tranquil, and beautiful, just like a warm day in winter. I know it better than you. Quickly. Han Yunqi was anxious for her. She grabbed her hand, but who knew that when she grabbed it, she would unconsciously withdraw her hand. So cold, so cold. That cold air was contagious. She could even feel the cold air invading her hand. Han Yunqi didn't do it on purpose, but she did withdraw her hand. Princess Consort, it's fine. It's over. Bailey Mingxiang comforted her. It's not over yet. Han Yunqi was infuriated for no reason. She didn't wait for Bailey Mingxiang to lie down. She sat behind Bailey Mingxiang and immediately took out her golden needles. Although it was difficult to find an acupuncture point through the clothes, Han Yunqi's movements were as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water. She was very experienced and nimble. Not long after, Bailey Mingxiang's back was covered with golden needles. If she could, she wanted to help Bailey Mingxiang get rid of the cold poison, but she couldn't. She could only use the needles to disperse the cold air, not in a fit of pique. Is it better? Han Yunqi asked with concern. Bailey Mingxiang finally let out a sigh of relief. It's not that cold anymore. I told you it would be useful. Han Yunqi unconsciously let out a breath of turbid air. She had encountered many difficult cases, but she had never felt as depressed as she did today. She could clearly cure the poison, but she couldn't. It was truly depressing. Han Yunqi was not idle. The cold poison would cause pain all over the body. She took out the painkillers that had been dissolved in the water. Based on Bailey Mingxiang's situation, she estimated that she would need to increase the dosage. She took out another painkiller and dissolved it in the water. This method would allow the medicine to be absorbed faster and the painkillers would be better. However, when Han Yunqi dissolved the painkiller, Bailey Mingxiang couldn't help trembling. Actually, the golden needles on her back had no effect at all. She was still very, very cold. She had lied to Han Yunqi. At first, it was only her hands that were trembling, but soon her entire body was trembling. She tightly pursed her lips, afraid that her teeth would chatter. Drink a bowl first. Only then will the medicine be effective. Han Yunqi raised her head. She had just brought the bowl of medicine over when her hand froze. She had seen the truth. You lied to me, Princess. Princess Consort. It's fine. You can leave first. I will be better soon. There's no effect at all? Han Yunqi was angry and shocked. Bailey Mingxiang did not answer her. That pale smile was indescribably sad. She stood up with difficulty and walked towards the bed. Han Yunqi quickly stood up to help her. This time when she touched her hand, Han Yunqi did not let go. But it was so cold that her hand was trembling. Bailey Mingxiang's situation was several times worse than she imagined. Was it because of her special constitution? At this time, Han Yunqi did not have time to think about it. She helped Bailey Mingxiang to the bed and took out the golden needles before letting her lie down. Using the needles was more direct than any other method of warming up. If the needles were useless, then other methods would be even more useless. This was the first time in Han Yunqi's life that she did not know what to do with a patient. Bailey Mingxiang curled up in the blankets and began to tremble even more. It was as if she could not stop trembling. "Princess Consort, I've been rude." She said this and turned around with her back facing Han Yunqi. After half an hour, Bailey Mingxiang continued to tremble. The powerless Han Yunqi sat on the side. Looking at the trembling back, she felt a kind of sad and desolate feeling. After the cold retreated, the pain came again. Han Yunqi carefully fed Bailey Mingxiang 2 bowls of painkillers, but it was the same as before. The painkillers had no effect at all. Bailey Mingxiang did not say a single word of pain. Her back was still facing Han Yunqi as she lay there for another half an hour. It was so painful that she was covered in sweat. It was so painful that she bit her lip until it bled. It was so painful that she could not help thinking of her childhood. She thought of the lotus pond with the door open, and she thought of that cold as ice youth. No one would ever know that the best painkiller was him. "Your Highness Duke of Qin," Mingxiang does not dare to hope for anything. "I only hope that when the day comes that the beauty's blood matures, you will remember that there is a woman in this world called Bailey Mingxiang." Finally, the pain receded. Bailey Mingxiang turned around. Her face was filled with exhaustion and her eyes were about to close. "Go to sleep. I'll prescribe medicine for you," Han Yunqi said indifferently. Bailey Mingxiang smiled faintly, then quickly closed her eyes and fell asleep. Han Yunqi sat to the side, watching over her as she prescribed medicine. She prescribed a lot of medicine, so much that Bailey Mingxiang had to take a poison every day. Long Fei Yi said that a lifetime was crueler, but a cruel lifetime was the cruelest. "Bailey Mingxiang, you can either hurry up and die or come back to life," Han Yunqi muttered to herself. She had decided that she would help Bailey Mingxiang cultivate the beauty's blood in the shortest time possible. At the same time, she would try her best to find a way to save her life in the next 6 months. After going through so much, she could not die like this. She had to be stronger and live on. Only then would she be worthy of all the suffering she had suffered. Before Bailey Mingxiang woke up, Han Yunqi left, leaving behind a pile of poison. As soon as Han Yunqi returned to the Duke of Qin's estate, she immediately shut herself in the study and meditated. Her soul wandered into the large space of the detoxification system. The detoxification system had several poison manuals, and a few of them had records of the beauty's blood. She had to understand this thing thoroughly before coming up with a countermeasure. However, just as Han Yunqi's soul was wandering, Zhao Mama knocked on the door. "Esteemed Wang Fei, Steward Luo has brought Su Xiaoyu." Zhao Mama knocked a few times, but Han Yunqi did not hear her. She was too engrossed. "Granny Zhao, is the Princess Consort asleep?" Su Xiaoyu asked in a low voice. When she entered the estate, she was dressed in rags and her hair was unkempt. After being trained by Steward Luo for a few days, she seemed to have become a completely different person. At the age of 7 or 8, her facial features were exquisite and her temperament was clean. If she wasn't wearing the clothes of a servant girl, she would definitely be mistaken for a rich young miss. "She just came back not long ago." Zhao Mama was about to knock again, but Su Xiaoyu immediately stopped her. "Zhao Mama, if she really is asleep, wouldn't we be disturbing her?" "Absolutely not. Esteemed Wang Fei's sleep is more important than anything else." "You little girl, esteemed Wang Fei didn't save you in vain." Zhao Mama was quite fond of this little girl who acted like an adult. "Zhao Mama, what can I do? Just tell me what to do." Su Xiaoyu was very enthusiastic. "You should go and rest too." Granny Zhao smiled and went off to do her work. Su Xiaoyu sat at the entrance and quickly noticed that there were many strange plants in the courtyard. She quickly ran over to ask Zhao Mama about them. "They are all poisonous. You absolutely cannot touch them." Zhao Mama finally remembered this matter. Actually, the plants in the courtyard were all highly corrosive poisons that Han Yunqi was using to study the poison orchids. She wanted to first figure out how to hybridize them. If she couldn't grow them, then she would ask the Medicine Ghost Valley's Gu Qi Sha. Zhao Mama only knew that these plants were poisonous. As for what kind of poison it was, She didn't know. Su Xiaoyu nodded. Not long after, Han Yunqi came out of the study and saw Su Xiaoyu sitting at the entrance. She had been too busy and had almost forgotten about this little girl. "Little girl, you're here?" Han Yunqi asked with a smile. Su Xiaoyu turned around and was pleasantly surprised. "Esteemed Wang Fei, you're awake. Do you want to bathe? This servant will help you bathe." Why would she want to bathe in the middle of the day? Chapter 323. Why bathe? Han Yunqi looked at Su Xiaoyu in confusion. Su Xiaoyu blinked her innocent eyes and replied seriously, "Esteemed Wang Fei, don't you rich people always take a bath when you wake up to maintain your skin?" Han Yunqi smiled bitterly. "Who told you that?" "The older sisters who begged with me said it. They also said that you rich people have to fill the bathtub with flower petals and massage with very expensive essential oils." Su Xiaoyu spoke very seriously, as if she had seen it with her own eyes. Han Yunqi didn't know how to answer her, but she wasn't wrong. Among the upper class of the royal family, not only women but even men also liked to take baths. If Su Xiaoyu hadn't mentioned it, Han Yunqi would have forgotten that Long Fei Yi had a very luxurious hot spring in his palace. It wasn't something that Su Xiaoyu's bathtub could compare to. "I like to take a bath in the evening." Han Yunqi smiled. Su Xiaoyu's eyes flashed with craftiness as she quickly replied, "Then Xiao Yu will serve esteemed Wang Fei in the evening." Han Yunqi smiled but didn't reply. She hadn't fallen asleep in the study. Instead, she was reading through all the records on Beauty's blood in the detoxification system. The results were disappointing. There weren't many records, and she knew all of it. Beauty's blood was cultivated in a special female body. After taking 300 kinds of slow-acting poisons, the toxins would seep into the blood and cause a qualitative change in the blood. According to normal medical theory, the person whose blood had undergone a qualitative change was basically incurable. However, this matter clearly couldn't be explained by normal medical theory. Han Yunqi sat down on the swing in the courtyard. She pondered whether she should concoct all the slow-acting poisons that Bailey Mingxiang had taken and see the results before continuing her research. She didn't know when Long Fei Yi would return. He should know more about Beauty's blood than she did. Su Xiaoyu followed beside Han Yunqi. "Esteemed Wang Fei, Zhao Mama said that the grass in the courtyard is poisonous. Is that true? You don't believe me? Why don't you try it?" Han Yunqi grinned. Su Xiaoyu immediately shook her head. "I wouldn't dare." "That's right. Those things are highly poisonous." Han Yunqi was not joking. If one touched the roots of these plants with their bare hands, their hands would be destroyed. "Princess Consort, I won't touch them. I can water them every day." Su Xiaoyu took the initiative. How could Han Yunqi give such a dangerous and important thing to a child? "No need, I can take care of myself." Han Yunqi was filled with questions, but Su Xiaoyu asked, "Princess Consort, why are you planting these poisonous plants?" Children were always curious. However, Su Xiaoyu had been with Steward Luo for so many days. Didn't Steward Luo tell her to watch, listen, and learn less when she was working in the Furong courtyard? Fortunately, this little girl stayed by her side. If she ran into Long Fei Yi one day, she wouldn't have to ask so many questions. Long Fei Yi would definitely make her leave. Children don't need to know so much. Han Yunqi felt that she was still very loving. She specially reminded her, "Little Yu, if you meet His Highness in the future, do you know what to do? His Highness Duke of Qin?" Su Xiaoyu suddenly became nervous. "Of course. His Highness Duke of Qin also lives here. You'll definitely meet him." Han Yunqi smiled. Long Fei Yi was such a cold and aloof man. He wouldn't be so lethal to such a young girl, right? Legend has it that His Highness Duke of Qin is very fierce. Su Xiaoyu said seriously. Han Yunqi nodded seriously. "That's right. So, when you see him in the future, don't ask random questions. Do you understand?" Su Xiaoyu nodded like she was pounding onions. In the evening, Han Yunqi really did feel an itch in her heart. She wanted to take a bath. It just so happened that Long Fei Yi wasn't in the Fu these days. She could go to the hot springs without any scruples. "Zhao Mama, get ready. I want to take a bath." It's a pity that His Highness won't be coming back tonight. Zhao Mama secretly sighed as she prepared things. Su Xiaoyu followed behind her and helped her. Han Yunqi didn't know anything about flower petals or essential oils. In modern times, she would at most take a hot bath in the bathtub at home. It wasn't that she couldn't afford it, but that it took too much time to prepare. Zhao Mama was an old hand. As soon as Han Yunqi arrived at the bedroom, she and Su Xiaoyu came over with a pile of things. When Long Fei Yi wasn't here, the bedroom wasn't locked. However, there were no less than 10 hidden guards around. In reality, none of Long Fei Yi's secrets were hidden in the bedroom. This was just a place where he slept and rested. He hated it when people casually entered. If she wasn't walking with Han Yunqi, it would probably be difficult for Zhao Mama to enter alone, let alone Su Xiaoyu. As soon as Su Xiaoyu entered the bedroom, she was immediately shocked by the luxurious and spacious interior. Although it was dark on both sides and she couldn't see anything clearly, just the towering stone pillars on both sides were enough to make people feel intimidated. This place was filled with His Highness Duke of Qin's noble and inviolable aura. This time, Su Xiaoyu learned her lesson. She walked all the way to the hot spring without saying anything. Zhao Mama handed a large basket of rose petals to Su Xiaoyu to sprinkle in the hot spring. She prepared the essential oils and placed them to the side. There was also a large bath towel and clean clothes. As Su Xiaoyu sprinkled the petals, she stole glances at Han Yunqi as if waiting for something. However, Han Yunqi sat by the side of the hot spring without moving for a long time. Soon, Zhao Mama finished preparing everything. Esteemed Wang Fei, this old servant will wait behind the curtain. Han Yunqi never needed to be served the entire time when she was bathing. Although she was also a woman, she wasn't used to being honest with others. Seeing that Su Xiaoyu was still standing to the side, Zhao Mama said with displeasure, "Little girl, what are you spacing out for?" "I want to serve esteemed Wang Fei," Su Xiaoyu said with a serious face. No matter how one looked at her, she looked simple and honest. "No need. Zhao Mama's here is enough." Han Yunqi waved her hand and prepared to take off her clothes, but Su Xiaoyu stood in place and refused to budge. "That's not how a servant should act. You'll have plenty to serve in the future, so go on out." Han Yunqi felt helpless. It was obvious that this girl wanted to repay her kindness. Zhao Mama didn't think so much and simply dragged Su Xiaoyu out. Let's go, let's go. Don't delay any longer." Su Xiaoyu had no choice but to sulkily follow Zhao Mama out. As soon as the curtains were closed, Zhao Mama said in a low voice, "Little you go tell Chu Shifeng to tell His Highness that esteemed Wang Fei's tired from bathing in her chambers. She wants to sleep here tonight." Su Xiaoyu widened her eyes. "Zhao Mama, you're lying. Don't speak nonsense." Zhao Mama grew fierce. "Esteemed Wang Fei clearly just... I've served esteemed Wang Fei for so long. Do you think I don't understand her? Are you going or not?" Zhao Mama asked. But I don't know who Chu Shifeng is. How am I supposed to find him?" Su Xiaoyu was at a loss. Zhao Mama had been so excited that she'd forgotten that this girl had no way of finding Chu Shifeng. Without a choice, she could only go by herself. "Stay on guard and don't wander off. Understand?" Zhao Mama said sternly. Su Xiaoyu nodded her head. Zhao Mama was still worried and lowered her voice. "Little girl, I'm not trying to scare you, but if you dare to wander around here, you won't even know how you'll die." Su Xiaoyu was stunned. "I don't want to stay here. I'll go find Chu Shifeng. As long as you don't wander off, esteemed Wang Fei's here. What are you afraid of?" Zhao Mama was amused. She found it quite interesting to have a little girl as a companion. Su Xiaoyu's face was full of fear as she sat cross-legged beneath the curtains. "Zhao Mama, hurry and come back." Seeing this, Zhao Mama set her mind at ease and left cheerfully. But as soon as Zhao Mama left, Su Xiaoyu stood up, her fearful expression long gone. In its place was a calm and collected serenity that didn't fit her age. She cocked her head to listen carefully for movements behind the curtains until she heard the sound of water. After confirming that Han Yunqi was in the pool, she carefully lifted a corner of the curtains. Of course she knew there were guards here, But she also knew that no one but Long Fei Yi would dare to spy on Han Yunqi while she was bathing. Through the cracks, she caught a glimpse of a charming scene. The pool was covered in rose petals like a sea of flowers. Amidst the mist, Han Yunqi's hair was tied up high, making her face look thinner and more delicate than usual. Her entire body was submerged in the water until it reached her chest. As the water rippled, her beautiful collarbones could be vaguely seen. A stunner! Su Xiaoyu gave her a mature evaluation. It's a good thing I came, she thought. If it was Master, would he have a nosebleed? But Master wouldn't be able to get in. Su Xiaoyu stared at Han Yunqi as if trying to find something on her body. Unfortunately, Han Yunqi didn't move much and soon fell asleep by the side of the pool. When Zhao Mama returned, Su Xiaoyu was still sitting cross-legged on the ground with a serious expression like a gatekeeper. Zhao Mama returned disappointed. She hadn't found Chu Shifeng, so her lies couldn't reach His Highness Duke of Qin's ears. You didn't run off, right? Zhao Mama had only asked casually. Anyone who could enter the hibiscus courtyard as a servant usually didn't need to be suspicious. This girl had been frightened by her just then, so she wouldn't run off. I didn't. Su Xiaoyu replied seriously, then asked, Zhao Mama, why did a steamed Wangfei soak for so long? As they spoke, the sound of water came from behind the curtains. Han Yunqi had risen. Su Xiaoyu's eyes darkened. Damned Zhao Mama, you really came at the wrong time. What a waste of such a good chance. It was easy enough to get Han Yunqi to soak in a bath, but she had no idea how easy it would be to get her to do it Long Fei Yi when he wasn't around. Han Yunqi dressed herself neatly and came out of the room. She felt refreshed after a bath. It had been ages since she'd gone to the Han estate, so she had to go back. Her little ear must be missing her. Zhao Mama cleaned up the rose petals in the pool as she complained. Where did that damned brat Chu Shifeng run off to at such a crucial time? Chu Shifeng had just returned from Medicine Ghost Valley with a message from His Excellency Pill Fiend. Go back and tell Long Fei Yi to bring his horse over at any time. Chu Shifeng relayed the message to Long Fei Yi, who smiled and said, We'll set out immediately. Chapter 324. At the Medicine Ghost Valley. The air was still filled with the fresh scent of medicinal herbs. A large group of men and women of all ages knelt in front of the courtyard in the middle of the valley. Inside the spacious courtyard, Long Fei was all alone. He was dressed in black robes and had a sword hanging from his waist as he stood with his hands behind his back. His Excellency Pill Fiend, Gu Qisha, was sitting on the threshold of the door. His Excellency Pill Fiend, Gu Qisha, was dressed in loose black robes that covered him from head to toe. Only his narrow eyes could be seen. The two men faced each other, one sitting and one standing. Long Fei Ye's expression was as cold as ice. His entire body exuded the aura of a powerful ruler. His aura was so strong that no one dared to approach him. Gu Qisha, on the other hand, was indolent and carefree, as if he was sunbathing by the door. If it weren't for his strange black robes, no one would have spared him a second glance. 10 moves. If this prince loses, you can name any conditions you want. If this prince wins, you have to hand over the serpent fruit, said Long Fei Yi. Gu Qisha cackled. He stretched out a bony finger from his robes and shook it lightly. I don't want to play. Long Fei Yi looked at him coldly. Gu Qisha, this prince is already here. What do you mean by this? Gu Qisha had said, bring it on. Was he going to back down at the last minute? Your Highness Duke of Qin, I'm old. I can't fight anymore. Gu Qisha deliberately made his sigh sound strange and unpleasant. The serpent fruit was in Gu Qisha's hands, so Long Fei Yi could only wait patiently. He knew things weren't that simple. Then what do you want? Gu Qisha suddenly chuckled as if he was very happy. I don't want anything. As long as you let me kick you, the serpent fruit is yours. As he spoke, he stood up and stretched out a leg from under his robes. His movements were even more flirtatious than a woman's. His leg was long and well-proportioned, and he wore an extremely expensive pair of gold-threaded boots. It was impossible to see whether the skin on his leg was as wrinkled as his hands, but based on his bones, Pill Fiend didn't seem like an old man at all. Long Fei Ye's cold gaze shot over. Murderous intent filled the air. What if this prince isn't willing? Gu Qixia chuckled. Scram! The coldness in Long Fei Ye's eyes suddenly turned into killing intent. He drew his sword and slashed at Gu Qixia without another word. Gu Qixia immediately soared into the sky. Below him, more than half of his house had already been destroyed by Long Fei Ye's powerful sword energy. Gu Qixia glanced at him and roared, Long Fei Yi, don't you dare! You have to pay the price for messing with me. Long Fei Ye's awe-inspiring aura was enough to intimidate everything. He then soared into the sky and closed in on Gu Qixia. Gu Qixia dodged again. He took out the serpent fruit from his sleeve and raised it high in the air. Long Fei Yi, if you take another step forward, I guarantee that I'll destroy this serpent fruit. Long Fei Yi finally landed on the roof. Before he could say anything, Gu Qixia said, His Highness Duke of Qin's swordsmanship is truly exceptional. His swordsmanship is indeed exceptional. You still want to waste your breath? Long Fei Ye's patience was limited. No, old man. I'm saying something very important. Gu Qixia was very serious. Your Highness Duke of Qin, as the closed-door disciple of the Kenzo sect head, isn't it a little too shameless to challenge an old man like me, who only knows a little bit of martial arts? At his words, the temperature in the courtyard seemed to drop by a few degrees. Even Chu Shifeng, who was watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but shiver. Although he was His Highness Duke of Qin's personal bodyguard, he still wanted to tell Gu Qixia to run. Is that so? Long Fei's icy voice turned cold and evil as his lips drew up into an icy, bewitching curve. Then your lordship will take a look and see just how old you are, old man. As soon as he finished speaking, he unleashed his sword energy. A ray of light shot out from the blade and landed right in Gu Qixia's eyes. The previously jovial Gu Qixia immediately grew guarded. Of course, he couldn't beat Long Fei Yi in a fight. Otherwise, he would have challenged him to a duel long ago. Thus, he turned to flee. Long Fei Yi stood in place as he stared cold Gu Qixia with his dark, penetrating eyes. Gu Qixia had already fled, but he wasn't in a hurry. He raised his sword with both hands and narrowed his eyes before slashing downwards with enough force to split the heavens and earth. His sword chi surged towards Gu Qixia with mountain-toppling momentum. Gu Qixia was hit squarely in the face, causing his black robes to be torn to shreds. His hands were as bony as ever as he lay sprawled on the ground, making it impossible to see his face. Chu Shifeng grew nervous at the sight and rushed over to see Gu Qixia's face. But Long Fei Yi was as calm as ever. His figure flashed before Chu Shifeng and landed by Gu Qixia's side. He pressed his sword against Gu Qixia's back and said, Old man, do you need me to help you? Gu Qixia didn't budge, but Long Fei Ye's lips quirked up into a cold sneer. He was about to stab him again when Gu Qixia suddenly turned around and scattered a handful of black powder in his direction. Long Fei Yi was naturally on guard. He backed away, only to see Gu Qixia's face covered by his black mask. Only his eyes were visible. No need. Gu Qixia chuckled as he turned to flee. Long Fei Yi was about to chase after him when his vision blurred. He clearly avoided the black powder, so why was this happening? Could it be poison? But didn't he avoid it too? Chu Shifeng, chase after him. Long Fei Yi said coldly, but Gu Qixia was shouting from afar. Your Highness Duke of Qin, if you don't treat the poison within a day, this old man promises you'll go blind. Chu Shifeng was alarmed. He knows the poison arts. Chu Shifeng had clearly seen his master avoid the black powder, but he'd still been poisoned. It was obvious that Gu Qixia's poison skills were extraordinary. This fellow from the medical academy actually knew the poison arts. If the medical academy found out, they'd probably never acknowledge him again. Long Fei Ye's eyes were already starting to hurt. He'd been too slow to react just then. He should have stabbed Gu Qixia as soon as he arrived. Master, we have to go back and find esteemed Wang Fei right now. Chu Shifeng grew anxious. With master and servant's speed, It was very, very unlikely that they'd make it back to Tianning's capital city in a day's time to treat Han Yunqi's poison. Long Fei stared at Gu Qisha's retreating form and clenched his fists so tightly that they cracked. "Your lordship will remember this debt." Without further ado, master and servant mounted their horses and galloped towards Tianning's capital city. Gu Qisha secretly followed them all the way to the mouth of the valley, where he stood on a hillside and watched Long Fei Ye's retreating forms with a strange chuckle. "Long Fei Ye," he muttered to himself, "unless you bring Han Yunqi here, you'll never be able to take the serpent fruit away." Late at night the next day, Long Fei Yi hurried back to the Duke of Qin's estate. In the dead of night, even the lights in Han Yunqi's room were extinguished. Time was of the essence, so Long Fei Yi jumped in through the window. The impatient Chu Shifeng almost followed him in, but realized he couldn't and quickly stopped. "Who's there?" Han Yunqi woke up with a start and sat up. "It's me," Long Fei Yi replied as he lit the lanterns. He was about to tell her about the poison when he saw Han Yunqi and gave a start. Although his eyesight was much weaker due to the poison, he could still see her clearly at this close distance. Han Yunqi's long, straight hair hung loosely over her shoulders. Her bare face was pure and innocent, her eyes drowsy. She was dressed in pure white undergarments, the V-shaped collar of her robes hanging loosely half open, revealing a hint of spring in her eyes. Purity and sexiness were perfectly combined on this sleepy woman. Long Fei Ye's gaze grew heated as his throat tightened. For the first time, his self-control began to crumble. Han Yunqi never expected Long Fei Yi to barge in. She was stunned, but soon received a notification from the detox system. "This guy's been poisoned?" She panicked so much that she didn't even notice the heat in Long Fei Ye's eyes. She called out his name again. "Long Fei Yi, your eyes have been poisoned." At this time, Long Fei Yi finally recovered from his obsession. A touch of irritation flashed through his heart. He didn't like the feeling of losing control. "Yes, black powder. I avoided it, but I still couldn't escape," he explained concisely. He didn't intend to let Han Yunqi know that he went to the Medicine Ghost Valley. "It's Ghost Eye black powder." Han Yunqi didn't need to activate the detox system to know what kind of poison Long Fei Yi was poisoned with. The poison of Ghost Eye black powder was hidden in very fine powder particles. Although it seemed to have been avoided, in fact, it would still be poisoned. However, to be poisoned, one had to be close. Han Yunqi was suspicious. How did Long Fei Yi get poisoned? Who poisoned him? Of course, she didn't have time to ask. If the poison wasn't completely removed in a while, Long Fei Yi would go blind. She hurriedly got off the bed and forgot that she was only wearing a nightgown. She didn't have her usual calmness, authority, and professionalism. "Lie down quickly. I'll start the acupuncture immediately." She was anxious. She was afraid that something would happen to Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi lay on the bed and slowly closed his eyes. In the whole world, only this woman could make him completely relax his guard. He would leave his most vulnerable eyes to her. Although Han Yunqi was anxious, she was even more careful. As she inserted the needles into the acupoints around the eyes, a black liquid similar to tears slowly flowed out from the corners of Long Fei Ye's eyes. Seeing this, Han Yunqi secretly sighed in relief. She was finally relieved. "It's okay." Hearing this, Long Fei Yi wanted to open his eyes. Han Yunqi hurriedly covered his eyes. "Don't." Her hand was very soft. It was still warm because she just woke up. His handsome face was as cold as his temperament. Her hand gently covered his eyebrows. One was hot and the other was cold. It gave them a touch that they couldn't ignore even if they wanted to. For a moment, both of them were silent. Neither of them moved. The warmth of Han Yunqi's palm warmed Long Fei Ye's cold eyes. Blood circulated, and the originally tense feeling gradually relaxed. There was an indescribable sense of comfort. He was greedy for this kind of comfort, so he simply stopped moving. Han Yunqi sat beside him. Most of her body was leaning forward. It was rare to see him at such a close distance without him looking at her. She liked this feeling. Her hand was very sore, but she didn't want to move it at all. As she looked at him, her other hand unconsciously reached over and gently gently stroked his slightly furrowed brows. She wanted to soothe his worries. The room was quiet and warm. Long Fei Yi noticed the small movement between his eyebrows, but he didn't stop it. He only felt that his whole head was relaxed. At this moment, all the responsibilities, scruples, and forbearance that he had endured for more than 10 years were temporarily put down. Note to the readers, the Genius Poison Concubine has a public WeChat account. She will update the story at the same time. Quickly add her and see what surprises there are. Account. Tying Cakes Yadufiai. Chapter 325. Long Fei Yi was currently immersed in Han Yunqi's excellent massage when he suddenly heard a rustling sound from the side of his waist. Was he pressing down on something? Although he enjoyed Han Yunqi's gentle strokes between his brows, he didn't want to interrupt this rare moment of Ningjing. But the thing by his waist was truly annoying. It was fine if it moved, but once it did, it kept twisting and turning. Long Fei Yi really couldn't lie down. As someone who was obsessed with cleanliness, he had very high standards for his bed. "There's something on your bed?" Long Fei Yi's unhappy voice broke the warmth of the room. His hand reached out and immediately grabbed a furry thing. What else could it be but Lil Thing? Lil Thing hadn't slept much these past few days. It had snuck into the palace in the middle of the night to steal things and was currently sleeping soundly. Even though Long Fei Yi had arrived and was being pressed down by Long Fei Yi, it was still in a daze. When Long Fei lifted it up high, it lazily opened one of its sleepy eyes to see a handsome face before it. He waited Mama Yunqi's face change. Lil Thing opened its other eye to take a closer look and immediately saw Long Fei Yi's cold face. "Cheap!" A shrill shriek echoed throughout the Duke of Qin's estate. Lil Thing's drooping fur stood on end. Too frightening. Long Fei Yi's icy face was very frightening to begin with, but now his eyes were closed and bleeding black blood. "You scared this rat baby to death." Before Lil Thing's shrieks had even ended, Long Fei Yi casually flung it towards the window. Unfortunately, Han Yunqi's window was too small and Long Fei Yi's eyes were closed, so he missed. Lil Thing hit the windowsill and landed with a thump. But as soon as it hit the ground, it scrambled to its feet and climbed onto the windowsill to jump down. Han Yunqi was dumbfounded. Why was this little thing so useless? Why was it afraid of Long Fei Yi? Couldn't it transform into a super big squirrel? Let's see how Long Fei Yi is going to throw it out. Sigh, having such a pet was really embarrassing for the owner. Han Yunqi was still complaining when Long Fei Yi questioned, "Why do you put everything on the bed? Don't you find it dirty? How can you put everything up here? Only you and the little thing have slept on this bed before." Fortunately, Han Yunqi's voice was very low. Otherwise, if Long Fei found out that his woman had compared him to a rat, Lil Thing would probably suffer a calamity. Long Fei Yi was not used to not hearing Han Yunqi's reply or seeing her expression. He subconsciously wanted to open his eyes, but Han Yunqi quickly stopped him. "Don't, you have to close your eyes until dawn. There will be more toxins coming out later." This time, she did not cover his eyes. Instead, she took her own handkerchief and carefully wiped the black poison off his face. Long Fei Yi obediently did not open his eyes. He asked, "How long until dawn?" "There are still 4 hours left." "All right." Han Yunqi secretly hoped that the sun would rise a little later. Actually, there was only 2 more hours until the sun rose. She did not know why she kept this guy for 2 more hours, but she was a little reluctant to let him go. Long Fei Yi did not speak again and allowed Han Yunqi to gently wipe his face. "Your Highness, let me wipe your face for you." She had just called him Long Fei Yi by his full name, but now she unconsciously called him Your Highness. Han Yunqi did not notice it, but Long Fei Yi did. He responded with a soft sound and did not say anything else. With Long Fei Yi's permission, Han Yunqi eagerly went to fetch water and wrung a towel. The magnificent and unbending goddess had instantly turned into a little maid. Would the men who adored her feel dejected when they saw this? Taking advantage of Long Fei Yi's closed eyes, Han Yunqi boldly observed his face. This was not the first time she had looked at him up close, but it was the first time she had looked at him so seriously and for so long. She discovered that his sharp eyebrows were extremely handsome. His eyelashes were very long. His nose bridge was ridiculously high, and his lips. As soon as she saw his lips, she unconsciously thought of what had happened before. As she stared and stared, Han Yunqi felt like she was dreaming. Everything felt so surreal. She gently wiped his face, from his handsome eyebrows to his sexy lips. She did not notice that Long Fei Ye's eyes were not completely closed. While she was carefully wiping his face, he was also carefully looking at her up close. He looked at her dainty face, looked at her beautiful eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, and saw the unconcealable adoration in her eyes. Han Yunqi, why did this prince allow you to adore me? Why did it have to be you? After wiping his face, Han Yunqi sat at the side and watched over him. Seeing that Long Fei Ye was not moving, she carefully probed, "Your Highness, are you asleep?" Long Fei Ye did not reply, so Han Yunqi asked again, "Your Highness." Long Fei Ye still did not move. Earlier, she could see that he was travel-worn and seemed very tired. Could it be that he had really fallen asleep? Han Yunqi carefully covered Long Fei Ye with the quilt, then sat cross-legged at the side to watch over him. However, not long after, she could no longer sit still. She leaned over and laid down beside him, propping up her chin with both hands as she looked at him. Towards this guy, she didn't know which one she admired, worshipped, admired, or liked more. If she could clearly explain why she liked him, then perhaps it wouldn't be called love, but rather a motive. Ever since she received an explanation about Duanmuyao's matter, Han Yunqi had already stepped onto the path of no return. Liking someone was not a shameful thing, so of course she had to openly like him. Long Fei Ye, I don't care how many steps you take in 100 steps. In any case, I will keep walking forward until I stand in front of you. She softly muttered. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Ye suddenly spoke up. What did you say? Han Yunqi was frightened. This guy actually didn't sleep. What did you say? Long Fei Ye asked again. No, nothing. Alright, the current Han Yunqi was just a coward who had the guts to make a decision, but didn't have the guts to express her feelings. She was so glad that she didn't do anything out of line just now. Otherwise, it would have been so embarrassing. Whether or not Long Fei Ye heard her just now, only he knew. Even heaven and earth didn't know. He didn't continue to harp on it, but only asked mildly, Aren't you sleepy? I'm not sleepy. Go ahead and sleep. How could Han Yunqi be sleepy? Unexpectedly, Long Fei Ye moved closer to the bed and patted the empty space beside him. Lie down. Han Yunqi's heartbeat suddenly sped up, thumping uncontrollably. What was he trying to do? Lie down for a while. I want to talk to you, Long Fei Ye said mildly. Cough, cough. At this moment, a certain woman who was blushing finally realized that she was overthinking. However, she was still very nervous when she was asked to lie down beside him. The empty space was very big, but she lay down very carefully, lying on her back like him. Her body was very, very tense. The distance between the two of them was enough to put down a bowl of water. As soon as she lay down, he opened his mouth. Did you use medicine on Bailey Mingxiang? I did. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll be able to produce Beauty's blood by this year, Han Yunqi answered honestly. What do you mean by nothing unexpected? Bailey Mingxiang's safety. Han Yunqi had always been strict. Don't worry. General Bailey's residence is even more strictly guarded than here. She won't cause any trouble, Long Fei Ye said mildly. Han Yunqi finally understood why a woman who was supposed to be at the prime of her life was so low-key and quiet. Han Yunqi didn't plan to tell Long Fei Ye that she was trying to save Bailey Mingxiang. Your Highness, where did your poisonous eyes come from? Han Yunqi had always been curious about this matter. I accidentally got poisoned during a fight. Long Fei Ye casually changed the topic. Did that gentleman from the Shadow Clan come by? If he did, I would have told you long ago. Han Yunqi had been waiting for that white-robed gentleman this entire time. He'd said that he'd come, and that he'd answer her questions the next time he came. Although Mute Granny's fate was unknown, Han Yunqi was already 70 to 80% sure that her father was from the poison sect. She was even more curious about why the Shadow Clan was protecting her. Between her father and Lady Tianqin, who was related to Western Qin's imperial family. What was the relationship between Western Qin's imperial family and the poison sect? Han Yunqi, if you really are a descendant of Western Qin's imperial family, you, Long Fei Yi trailed off, but Han Yunqi didn't notice anything amiss. She teased, then wouldn't you have profited by marrying me? Long Fei Yi slowly opened his eyes, which were filled with worry. Because of the poison, his eyes were bloodshot, making him look like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. Long Fei Yi, even you have worries. Even so, he smiled as he answered Han Yunqi's question. Han Yunqi, you were the one who married me. Him marrying her was supposed to be one thing, but when it came to the two of them, it had become two different things. She really was the one who had married him. She'd kicked the sedan door open herself. If Long Fei Yi hadn't been smiling as he said this, Han Yunqi might have sensed that there was more to his words. However, Long Fei Yi's teasing tone made Han Yunqi treat it as a joke. Then you've profited even more, she said cheerfully. Her nervousness from before had gradually relaxed. Perhaps. As Long Fei Yi spoke, he wrapped one arm around her neck and the other around her, pulling her into his embrace and tucking her in. Sleep, this prince is tired. His domineering masculine aura immediately enveloped her, leaving Han Yunqi with nowhere to run. This wasn't the first time she'd been so close to him, but it was the first time she'd laid down so close to him. In that instant, she suddenly felt as if his world had overlapped with hers. So close, so close. So this was what it felt like to share a bed with him. She was filled with his scent, so blissful that words couldn't describe it. Han Yunqi's eyes opened wide. The nerves that had just relaxed tightened once again, and her body couldn't help turning stiff again. Long Fei Yi seemed like he was truly tired. He leaned against her ear and said in a soft and tired voice, "Be good. Relax. This king will just hug you for a bit." His gentle voice seemed to have a magical power that slowly made Han Yunqi loosen up. She put down all her defenses and calmly hid in his embrace. She felt like there was an unbreakable mountain in her world. She really liked this feeling of security. But, Long Fei Yi, what's wrong with you today? You've never been tired before, so what's wrong? Long Fei Yi had truly fallen asleep, but Han Yunqi was very awake. She didn't dare move at all, afraid that she would wake him up. She had said 2 more hours so he could sleep a bit longer. However, as soon as the sun rose, Su Xiaoyu's voice sounded out. "Princess Consort, wake up." Chapter 326. Su Xiaoyu might be young, but her voice wasn't soft. She was only halfway up the stairs when Han Yunqi's door was still shut, but she could still hear her voice. "Who is it?" Long Fei Yi immediately woke up. "The little girl we saved. She's called Su Xiaoyu," Han Yunqi replied honestly. After investigating Su Xiaoyu's background, Chu Shifeng should have told Long Fei Yi about it, but he'd been too busy to do so. Long Fei Yi released Han Yunqi and rose to his feet. Han Yunqi quickly got off the bed. Su Xiaoyu had already reached the door. "Esteemed Wang Fei, it's time to get up. Your servant's here to brew you some tea." Han Yunqi always woke up early, so she should have been drinking tea in the courtyard by now. Of course, Su Xiaoyu had no idea that Long Fei Yi was here, but Han Yunqi felt gloomy at the well-intentioned interruption. This lass really knows how to pick the right time. I'll have to make it clear later that she's not allowed to come up here without my orders. Take it to the courtyard and prepare extra cups, Han Yunqi instructed from the other side of the door. Su Xiaoyu froze at the door and asked suspiciously, "Prepare an extra cup? Who's that?" She didn't know how to react. She'd wanted to use esteemed Wang Fei's late wake-up time to see if she could help her change her clothes, but now she didn't have the chance. Su Xiaoyu could only resentfully descend the stairs. But when she saw Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi emerge together, she couldn't help but shiver. It's the Duke of Qin. Rumors had it that Han Yunqi was doted on, so Su Xiaoyu had been scared witless when she first arrived. She was afraid that she'd have to face the Duke of Qin all the time, But it wasn't until she reached Leisurely Cloud Pavilion that she realized the Duke of Qin and Han Yunqi were living in separate rooms. When did the Duke of Qin arrive? Did he spend the night upstairs? Perhaps because of her guilty conscience, Su Xiaoyu almost broke the cup. Fortunately, she caught it in time. As soon as Long Fei Yi stepped out of the door, he shot a cold gaze at Su Xiaoyu. He had a panoramic view of her every move. Naturally, he also noticed her nervousness. Su Xiaoyu was flustered, but she was well trained after all. She cleverly made the best of her mistake. Her hand trembled again, and the teacup fell to the ground. Bang! Afterwards, she hastily fell to her knees, not even daring to raise her head. Your Highness Duke of Qin, please spare me. Spare my life. The servant didn't do it on purpose. Your Highness Duke of Qin, please spare my life. Long Fei Yi looked at her and did not say anything. Han Yunqi quickly went forward. Get up. Hurry up and tidy up. It's fine. Su Xiaoyu timidly looked up at Han Yunqi and shook her head, indicating that she didn't dare. I said it's fine, so it's fine. You can withdraw. Usually, whenever Long Fei Yi was mentioned, Su Xiaoyu would always be very afraid, so Han Yunqi didn't think too much of it. If Su Xiaoyu acted normal right now, Han Yunqi would be suspicious. As soon as she heard the two words, withdraw, Su Xiaoyu spat out in relief. Although she stood up, she still bent over, not daring to turn around. Facing Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi, she cautiously retreated. However, Long Fei Yi suddenly said, Stop. Su Xiaoyu's legs seemed to turn to jelly. She knelt down with a thump and sobbed, Esteemed Wang Fei, save me. Han Yunqi was both angry and amused. The little thing was already very embarrassing. How could there be someone more embarrassing than her? Your Highness, this girl's heard of your temper. She's afraid of you, Han Yunqi said with a smile. What, is your lordship's temper bad? Long Fei Yi asked. Su Xiaoyu couldn't stop trembling. Her head was almost pressed against the grass, but she didn't dare to make a sound. By now, Zhao Mama had arrived as well. As soon as she saw Long Fei Yi, she was bewildered. Your Highness, you came so early. Han Yunqi didn't explain, so Long Fei Yi wouldn't. Su Xiaoyu kept her head bowed, too afraid to speak. Zhao Mama finally noticed Su Xiaoyu kneeling on the side and laughed out loud. Your Highness, this child can't take a fright. It's best if you don't make things difficult for her. Zhao Mama cleaned up the teacups and steeped some fresh green tea. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, please sit. Then she whispered into Long Fei Ye's ear, Master, Chu Shifeng's already checked this girl. She can be used. Long Fei Yi finally sat down. Zhao Mama quickly waved at Su Xiaoyu to dismiss her. But Long Fei Yi only said cold, Have her serve me. Zhao Mama was in a difficult position. Her eyes drifted towards Han Yunqi. Give her some time to get used to it. Qin Xie will serve you. Han Yunqi half joked, half coaxing. She had no idea why Long Fei Yi was so serious about a little girl. Long Fei was about to speak when the sound of a cat meowing came from the bushes. Meow. This. Everyone was astonished. Whose cat was that? Han Yunqi knitted her brows at Zhao Mama, who immediately waved her hands. We don't. As she spoke, a cat poked its head out of the grass as if it was starving. It meowed pitifully at the crowd. This time, everyone was dumbfounded. Wasn't this the Persian cat that Emperor Tianhui had given to the Empress Dowager as a birthday gift? Why was it here? Lil Thing, come out. Han Yunqi shouted. Who else could do such a thing besides Lil Thing? No one knew where Lil Thing had gone, so Han Yunqi quickly went upstairs to search. She rummaged through chests and cupboards, but didn't find Lil Thing. Instead, she found a chest full of treasures. It was full of the Empress Dowager's birthday gifts, including Qin Wang Rong's Moon Night Pearl and the Crown Prince's Snow Ganoderma. Han Yunqi couldn't help but burst into laughter. She didn't know what to say. I'll give Lil Thing 32 likes. Beautifully done. The Empress Dowager must be depressed to death these days. Seeing the chest full of treasures, Long Fei Ye's lips twitched into a half-smile. Naturally, he could keep these treasures, but that Persian cat had to be sent away. If someone were to find out about it, the crime would not be just an ordinary one. Although Emperor Tianhui had given way about the Western Mountains, that didn't mean he and the Empress Dowager would drop the matter. Once they got hold of something that could be used against them, they wouldn't go easy on the culprit. After all, Tianning was still Emperor Tianhui's world. He only dreaded Long Fei Yi. Throughout history, how many of those who held power over the world, whose achievements surpassed their masters and whose wealth rivaled that of a nation's? Long Fei Yi quickly had his guards send the Persian cat away. As for the treasures, Han Yunqi generously left them for Lil Thing. As long as it didn't eat them, they were all hers. Their morning tea was interrupted by this incident. Zhao Mama seized the chance to take Su Xiaoyu away. Long Fei Yi didn't ask any questions, but told Han Yunqi, in the future, tell her not to wake you up so early. Han Yunqi gave a start before bursting into laughter. So that's why he was unhappy. Seeing Han Yunqi laugh, Long Fei Yi only pretended not to notice, his expression cold. He should be the embarrassed one, but Han Yunqi ended up feeling embarrassed instead. Chenxia Beis, she replied seriously. Still, she had no idea that Long Fei Yi had found Chu Shifeng that very day to ask him about Su Xiaoyu's origins. Just like that, the events at the Western Mountains passed. Han Yunqi would occasionally visit the Imperial Physician Courtyard when she needed medicinal ingredients. With her status and Gu Beiyue's presence, no one dared to object no matter how many ingredients she took. Besides cultivating the highly corrosive poisonous plants in the courtyard, Han Yunqi spent all her time researching Beauty's blood. She went to General Bailey's estate a few times, but Bailey Mingxiang was the same as ever. Once, Bailey Mingxiang's poison flared up again. There was nothing she could do to help, so she simply returned home. Today, she was about to go to General Bailey's estate again when someone from the Imperial Physician Courtyard arrived. They said someone had died in the palace from poison and wanted her to take a look. Han Yunqi knew that she couldn't refuse an invitation from the Imperial Physician Courtyard, rather than a direct summons from the palace. But she was puzzled. What kind of poisoned victim needed her to take a look? On the way, she asked around and was shocked to find out that the bold noble consort Yun had died from poison. The Empress Dowager wanted her to help find the culprit. Emperor Tianhui had 4 noble consorts: Noble Consort Xiao, Noble Consort Shui, Noble Consort Ning, and Noble Consort Yun. Noble Consort Xiao was the second imperial son's Mufei and the daughter of the prime minister of the left. Noble Consort Shui was a concubine's daughter from the imperial uncle's estate and counted as the empress's sister. Noble Consort Ning was the younger sister of one of the 3 cavalry generals. Only Noble Consort Yun had the lowest birth and was only the daughter of a provincial official. However, Noble Consort Yun had always been more favored than Noble Consort Shui and Noble Consort Ning. That was because she was bold enough to say and do things that others didn't dare. Her uniqueness had attracted Emperor Tianhui's attention, causing her to jump multiple ranks from Kairen to Noble Consort Yun. At the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, Xiao Jingxin publicly supported the Long Fei Yi, causing the most favored Noble Consort Xiao to lose all favor overnight. Meanwhile, Noble Consort Yun was in full swing. As soon as Han Yunqi heard that Noble Consort Yun had died from poison, the first person she thought of was Noble Consort Xiao. She was the biggest suspect. Of course, she knew things weren't that simple. If things were that simple, this wouldn't be a harem affair. She should rejoice that Long Fei Yi hadn't taken any concubines. Otherwise, she'd have to face a terrifying struggle for favor as well. Han Yunqi entered the palace and was about to change into a sedan chair when the second imperial son and the prime minister of the left, Xiao Jingxin, walked towards her. Esteemed Wang Fei, Yuru was wrongly accused. Esteemed Wang Fei, for His Highness's sake, you must seek justice for Yuru. Xiao Jingxin's face was full of anxiety. Yuru was Noble Consort Zhao's maiden name. Didn't they say they were investigating? The results came out so quickly. Han Yunqi asked in bewilderment. Esteemed Wang Fei, they found poison in Yuru's palace. One of her servant girls also confessed to the crime. We have all the witnesses and evidence. With Xiao Jingxin's influence in court and the Duke of Qin's backing, Emperor Tianhui couldn't touch him for now. But he couldn't bear to see his only daughter banished to the cold palace. He'd already given orders over and over, but Yuru had still been careless enough to be ambushed by a spy. The evidence had been planted, and the witness was none other than the spy. After the Empress lost her mind, the Empress Dowager regained control of the harem. With evidence and witnesses, how could the Empress Dowager let Yuru off so easily? The Empress Dowager had long wanted to deal with the Shao clan while the second imperial son and the crown prince vied for favor. Add that to the birthday banquet incident, and the Empress Dowager was fretting over the lack of a chance to take revenge. Moreover, noble consort Yun was dead and noble consort Shao was banished to the cold palace, leaving only noble consort Shui and noble consort Ning. Noble consort Ning was indifferent by nature and worshipped Buddha all year round. She didn't fight for favor, so noble consort Shui was the only one left with any real power. Now that the Empress had gone mad, plenty of people were eyeing the throne. Naturally, the Empress Dowager would find a way to help her own daughter onto the throne. Naturally, Han Yunshi was well aware of these complicated relationships as well. Just as Han Yunshi was about to speak, the second imperial prince hastily added, "Esteemed Wang Fei, nothing can happen to my Mufei. If anything happens to my Mufei, His Highness will definitely punish you." Chapter 327. Seeing the second imperial prince's impudence, Shao Jingxin immediately reprimanded him. "Tianqing, don't be rude to esteemed Wang Fei." Shao Jingxin was the second imperial prince's maternal grandfather, but in terms of seniority, he should be calling Long Tianqing second imperial prince. That's how he usually addressed him. But the situation was completely different now. Without Shao Jingxin and the Duke of Qin's backing, both noble consort Shao and the second imperial prince would suffer calamity. "Grandfather, we're all on the Duke of Qin's side. Of course she has to save Mufei," the second imperial prince said unhappily. He used to be the most favored imperial prince, even more so than the crown prince. Now that his status had plummeted, he couldn't get used to it. Like his imperial father, he'd always been dissatisfied with His Highness Duke of Qin. Crown Prince Long Fei Yi, on the other hand, had always respected the man. But who knew that he'd end up on the Duke of Qin's side? He and his Mufei had been kept in the dark by his grandfather for so long. The second imperial prince couldn't accept it. If possible, he'd choose his imperial father, because he was already planning to depose the crown prince. As for his loyalty to the Duke of Qin, he had been played like that at the birthday banquet. How could he still have a chance to shine? "Tianqing, don't be so impudent," Shao Jingxin said sternly. Long Tianqing was resentful. In any case, she has to save Mufei. Han Yunshi really didn't know why Emperor Tianhui had given up on the perfectly fine Long Tianma in favor of this idiot. Even if Long Tianma was bedridden for a few more years, his IQ and EQ were still 100 times higher than Long Tianqing's. Han Yunshi only understood Emperor Tianhui's misgivings after she found out about the imperial uncle's wealth. Of course, that was a story for another time. "Esteemed Wang Fei, please forgive me. I beg esteemed Wang Fei to save Yuru for His Highness's sake." Shao Jingxin begged bitterly. Actually, Long Tianqing was wrong. It wasn't that the Shao clan had helped the Duke of Qin, but that the Shao clan's current status, his position as left prime minister, and Yuru as noble consort were all thanks to the Duke of Qin's help. Han Yunshi would naturally save Yuru if she knew it was Long Fei Ye's territory. Even if Shao Jingxin didn't beg her, she'd still do it. "Don't worry, as long as she's really innocent, I'll definitely reveal the truth." Han Yunshi got into the sedan chair as soon as she finished speaking. She didn't argue with Long Tianqing and didn't blame him at all. Shao Jingxin couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This woman was so magnanimous. She deserved to be called Qin Wang's legal wife. Han Yunshi was taken directly to the scene of the crime, the bedroom of imperial concubine Yun. There were quite a few people present, including the Empress Dowager, noble consort Shao, Emperor Tianhui, and a few court ladies. To Han Yunshi's surprise, Duanmu Bei, Chu Tianin, and Chu Qingge were all present. This was Emperor Tianhui's family affairs, so why were these outsiders getting involved? Isn't Emperor Tianhui afraid of airing his dirty linen in public? Seeing Han Yunqi enter, the Empress Dowager was delighted. Yunqi, you've finally come. Everyone's been waiting for you. This old Empress Dowager, no matter when she saw her, would always smile kindly and amiably. People who didn't know would think that their relationship was very good. Han Yunqi was already used to it and went to greet her with a smile. Yunqi greets esteemed Empress Dowager and His Majesty, but the Empress Dowager actually helped her to her feet. If this was any other time, the Empress Dowager would be warm and cordial, but she wouldn't act like this. This time, it was highly likely that she was the one who'd framed noble Consort Xiao. They already had evidence and witnesses, so why didn't they close the case early? Why did they ask her to help with the investigation? How strange. Could it be that they were lusting after her medicine fan? What trap was waiting for her this time? Yunqi, the evidence and witnesses are all here. Noble Consort Xiao is the true culprit behind the poisoning, but Miss Chu says otherwise. She says there's something wrong with the poison. It's not that I don't believe Miss Chu, but, as the Empress Dowager spoke, she smiled helplessly. Only when I found you did I feel at ease. As it turned out, Noble Consort Yun's death coincided with Emperor Tianhui's meeting with Duanmu Bei and the Chu siblings in the Imperial Gardens. When Eunuch Luo went to report, Chu Qingge accidentally overheard him. She immediately expressed her knowledge of poisons and volunteered to take a look. By the time she arrived, the Empress Dowager was already preparing to convict Noble Consort Xiao, but Chu Qingge said there was something wrong with the poison. Although Emperor Tianhui had only given Noble Consort Xiao the cold shoulder and hadn't touched her, he should still be on the Empress Dowager's side under the current circumstances. Unexpectedly, he attached great importance to Chu Qingge's words and wanted her to investigate the matter instead. That was simply absurd. The shrewd Empress Dowager immediately sensed something fishy between Emperor Tianhui and Chu Qingge. If she guessed correctly, her lustful son had taken a liking to Chu Qingge. Chu Qingge came from one of Western Zhou's famed Chu clan, a great general's family. Given the current relations between Western Zhou and Tianning, and her background as a great general, she'd be the head of the noble consorts if she married into the imperial family. Everything in the imperial harem was under the Empress Dowager's control, so she naturally wasn't afraid of an investigation. She wanted nothing more than to raise noble consort Xue to the throne, so how could she allow anyone to compete with her? Thus, the Empress Dowager thought of Han Yunqi, the woman who'd humiliated Chu Qingge at the birthday banquet. Actually, Chu Qingge hadn't volunteered herself to please Emperor Tianhui at all. She had no idea that Emperor Tianhui had already taken a liking to her when she played the zither at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. Nor did she know that Emperor Tianhui's harem had such complicated relationships. Her reasons for doing so were simple. She wanted to stir up some trouble and let Long Fei Yi know she was still in the capital. That way, he'd hear news about her from Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqi knew poisons, but so did she. What Han Yunqi didn't, she did. If Long Fei Yi could gain the support of Western Zhou's Chu clan, then he'd have more leverage against Emperor Tianhui. As soon as the Empress Dowager finished speaking, Han Yunqi had no idea what she meant when Emperor Tianhui spoke up. Muhu, Miss Chu's poison skills are exquisite. Ken is quite at ease. Han Yunqi grew even more perplexed at his words. What were Emperor Tianhui and the Empress Dowager singing? Cold as Chu Qingge spoke up, esteemed Empress Dowager. The poison found in noble consort Zhao's quarters is the same as the one that poisoned noble consort Yun. But if this poison is fatal, it'd take an entire bottle. There's only half a bottle left, so it's obvious that you're framing her. Han Yunqi glanced at the bottle and recognized it as Red Snow Dipper. It was as Chu Qingge said, poisons could only be poisoned if the entire bottle was used up. But there was still half a bottle left, so there had to be something fishy going on. Miss Chu, do you mean to say that I'm framing noble consort Xiao? The Empress Dowager asked bluntly. Noble consort Xiao and the court lady remained kneeling on one side without a word. Chu Qingge was a virtuous person. If not for the difference in status, she wouldn't have put the Empress Dowager in her eyes, either. Her actions at the birthday banquet had already earned her disdain. Chinga doesn't dare. Chinga's only speaking the truth, Chu Chinga replied mildly. Yunchi? What do you say? The Empress Dowager turned to Han Yunchi. Although Han Yunchi wasn't sure what the Empress Dowager and Emperor Tianhui were planning, she had a clear goal: to save noble Consort Xiao. There's definitely something fishy about the remaining half-bottle of poison. Compared to Chu Chinga's obvious framing, Han Yunchi's words were more prudent and intelligent. At the very least, the Empress Dowager felt comfortable listening to them. But Chu Chinga only snorted disdainfully. Coward. Han Yunchi didn't mind. With a smile, she asked, Esteemed Empress Dowager, are you planning to give this case to Yunchi? Of course. Since there's something fishy about it, then we should investigate it thoroughly. We can't let the true culprit get away scot-free. That's why we shouldn't frame a good person, the Empress Dowager declared justly. Then some unrelated people can. Before Han Yunchi could finish, Emperor Tianhui spoke up. Muhu, since it was Miss Chu who discovered something fishy, Zhen thinks it's better to let her investigate the case. Zhen wants to see Miss Chu's poison skills for myself. Han Yunchi couldn't help but wonder if Emperor Tianhui had taken Chu Chinga's knockout powder or something. Why was he siding with her so much? After some observation, Han Yunchi really did discover that Emperor Tianhui was looking at Chu Chinga differently. Her suspicions grew as a bold guess formed in her heart. But she wasn't sure if Chu Chinga had realized the truth herself. Emperor, this is... The Empress Dowager was about to refuse when Chu Chinga spoke up. Esteemed Wang Fei, how about this? We'll investigate our own cases and see who gets to the bottom of the truth first. Hee, that's a good idea. Then it's settled, Emperor Tianhui agreed impatiently. A cold smile flickered past the Empress Dowager's eyes before she said, Since the Emperor has said so, you too can investigate on your own. Han Yunchi was in a bad mood. Chu Chinga had already fallen into her hands twice. So why wasn't she giving up? Did she think investigating a case was a game? What was there to compete about? If it wasn't noble Consort Xiao who'd been framed today, Han Yunchi would never play with her. Seeing that Han Yunchi had no objections, Chu Chinga hastened to add, Esteemed Wang Fei, what do you plan to do if I find out the truth first? Noble Consort Zhao's innocence and noble Consort Yun's death all depend on the truth. If you find out the truth, the Empress Dowager and His Majesty will naturally reward you handsomely. What else do you want? Han Yunchi countered seriously. Chu Chinga was at a loss for words. Still, she quickly adjusted herself. Even if this was a gamble with no chips or rewards, as long as she found out the truth first, she could trample Han Yunchi beneath her feet. Han Yunchi's poison skills were already famous in Tianning and Cloud Realm continent. As long as she beat Han Yunchi, her name would spread throughout Tianning as well. Qin Wangfei, how about we set a time limit of 3 days? Chu Chinga asked. Up to you, Han Yunchi didn't care. On one side, Duanmu Bei had been paying attention to Emperor Tianhui's eyes the entire time. If Emperor Tianhui had taken a fancy to Chu Chinga, then his apology for Yao Yao would go smoothly. Chu Tianin was paying attention to Emperor Tianhui as well. Although he disliked his little sister's foolish actions, he thought that it might be a good thing if she could stay in Tianning. With a time limit of 3 days, Han Yunchi and Chu Chinga both settled down in the palace for the sake of investigating the case. When Long Fei Yi found out, he immediately sent Zhao Mama into the palace to wait on them and told her not to leave their side at all. It was only the first day, but Chu Chinga and Han Yunchi were both staying in noble Consort Yun's palace to investigate the case. Emperor Tianhui actually came straight after court ended. Chapter 328. In history, there were plenty of instances where the spring night was short and the sun rose high, so the monarch never held court in the morning. It was understandable that Emperor Tianhui had come to noble Consort Yun's palace right after morning court. Han Yunchi took it as a sign that Emperor Tianhui wouldn't let go of Chu Chinga so easily. Zhen has come to see how you're going to investigate. You two should investigate and ask questions. There's no need to have any misgivings. Emperor Tianhui was still very serious. Yes, Han Yunqi replied offhandedly. But Chu Qingge only said, since your majesty is so open-minded, Qingge will definitely do her best to uncover the truth. On one side, Han Yunqi couldn't help but roll her eyes. Does that mean I won't do my best if Emperor Tianhui doesn't come? Zhen believes you. Emperor Tianhui's eyes were filled with meaning. Chu Qingge nodded. She was about to continue questioning the court lady when Emperor Tianhui added, Miss Chu, if there's anything you need help with, you can ask Zhen directly. Zhen will definitely help you deal with it in a timely manner. By now, Emperor Tianhui had already cast Han Yunqi to the side. Thank you, Your Majesty. If this was the past, Chu Qingge would have noticed the change in Emperor Tianhui's eyes. But now all she could think about was how to compare herself to Han Yunqi. As long as there was a way to beat Han Yunqi and show off in front of her, she'd use it without a second thought. It's Qingge's honor to gain Your Majesty's trust. Chu Qingge purposely raised her voice. Although the Empress Dowager had pushed Han Yunqi forward, Chu Qingge didn't believe the woman was sincere. She guessed that the Empress Dowager had some sort of scheme waiting for Han Yunqi. Emperor Tianhui would never help Han Yunqi either. Perhaps he had prepared a trap for Han Yunqi to jump into as well. Even if she couldn't win the Empress Dowager's support, Emperor Tianhui's trust was enough to beat Han Yunqi. So what if Han Yunqi was Long Fei Ye's official consort? So what if rumors said she was favored by the Long Fei Yi? Long Fei Yi was such a cold and busy person. How could he be by her side all the time and help her with everything? Chu Qingge was speaking so loudly that Han Yunqi would be embarrassed if she didn't look over. Her face was filled with confusion. What was Chu Qingge being so smug about? Hadn't she realized that winning Emperor Tianhui's trust wasn't an honor, but a misfortune? Sigh. Han Yunqi sighed softly in her heart. Esteemed Wang Fei, His Majesty must have taken a fancy to this girl. Zhao Mama couldn't help but whisper. Granny Zhao was an old woman who had been in the palace for a long time. Actually, when Chu Qingge had been playing the zither at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, Zhao Mama had already noticed something amiss, but she hadn't taken it to heart. Now that she saw Emperor Tianhui's gaze, she was 100% certain. Han Yunqi signaled Zhao Mama to keep quiet and walked into the inner room. Emperor Tianhui already hates me enough. It's better if I don't stay here and be a third wheel. It's not a good thing to ruin a marriage's fate. As soon as Han Yunqi left, Chu Qingge couldn't stay any longer. Why did that woman leave? Couldn't she stay any longer? Your Majesty, Qingge will take a look inside. Please excuse me, she said respectfully. Go on. Emperor Tianhui smiled slightly, looking very approachable. Even after Chu Qingge had turned around, Emperor Tianhui's gaze was still on her. He stared with interest at her exquisite figure and her graceful gait. As he stared and stared, his lips drew up into a satisfied smile. The more he looked, the more satisfied he felt. When Chu Qingge entered the inner rooms, she saw that Han Yunqi wasn't investigating anything, but sitting on one side and whispering to Zhao Mama. It was unclear what they were talking about, but both master and servant were wearing smiles on their faces. When Chu Qingge entered, Han Yunqi only glanced at her before ignoring her. Chu Qingge sat down across from her, but Han Yunqi ignored her to chat with Zhao Mama. Chu Qingge listened for a bit and realized that she didn't understand a single thing they were talking about. It had nothing to do with the case. Chu Qingge assumed that Han Yunqi would say something now that she was inside. After sitting for a while, Chu Qingge felt a little awkward. She dropped her lofty airs and asked coldly, Han Yunqi, judging from your expression, you must have found something, right? No, Han Yunqi was a woman of few words and didn't say much. Emperor Tianhui trusts me so much. Aren't you afraid? Chu Qingge asked next. No. Han Yunqi only replied without explaining. It was obvious that she didn't want to talk with Chu Qingge anymore, but Chu Qingge really wanted to talk with her. She wanted to know if this woman really didn't mind Emperor Tianhui's favoritism. More than that, she wanted to know what other charms this woman had to keep Long Fei Yi by her side. Han Yunqi, you don't really think the Empress Dowager is on your side, do you? But even if she wants to help you, she probably... As Chu Chinga spoke, she feigned kindness and lowered her voice. When I came over this morning, I heard that the Empress Dowager's palace lost a bunch of good things. She's so worried that she's busy searching everywhere that she doesn't have time to worry about anything else. Hearing this, Han Yunqi and Zhao Mama couldn't help but laugh out loud. Lil Thing is awesome. Chu Chinga was completely lost. Han Yunqi, what are you two laughing about? But Han Yunqi only replied with a few words. Nothing. As she spoke, she went back to talking and joking with Zhao Mama. She rambled on and on about a bunch of things while ignoring Chu Chinga. Chu Chinga was clearly here to show off, but her proud heart suddenly felt a sense of inferiority at being ignored. She gritted her teeth and left in a huff. Han Yunqi, just you wait and see. As soon as Chu Chinga arrived outside, she saw Emperor Tianhui drinking tea. Miss Chu, do you want to rest? Emperor Tianhui asked with concern. Only then did Chu Chinga realize that something was off. She felt strange, but she didn't have time to dwell on it. Many thanks for your Majesty's kind intentions, but Chinga has to seize the time. There's a bunch of court ladies outside that need to be interrogated one by one. Chu Chinga was very serious. She spent the entire morning interrogating the court ladies in great detail. She even asked a few questions repeatedly to make sure they weren't lying. She didn't realize that Emperor Tianhui was watching her the entire time she was interrogating the court lady. While Chu Chinga was both serious and diligent, Han Yunqi spent the entire morning chatting with Zhao Mama, who told her all sorts of interesting and scandalous stories about the palace. It wasn't that Han Yunqi was lazy, but that she'd already done most of her investigations. She'd examined noble Consort Yun's corpse and asked the court ladies a few questions, so she had an idea of what was going on. Emperor Tianhui didn't leave until noon, but soon had someone deliver a sumptuous lunch to Chu Chinga. He even thoughtfully prepared fruits and melons after the meal. As for Han Yunqi, she and Zhao Mama had to wait for a sedan chair to take them to their quarters for a meal. Their quarters were quite a distance away from noble Consort Yun's palace. Chu Chinga sat by herself, elegantly enjoying her meal while Han Yunqi and Zhao Mama waited by the door. Esteemed Wang Fei, don't worry. This old servant used silver, so the sedan chair will be here soon. This old servant has arranged for a famous flower banquet in the palace for you, Zhao Mama murmured. It's fine. I'm not hungry. Han Yunqi really wasn't hungry. With Zhao Mama, a senior servant in the imperial harem, she enjoyed her meals and lodging quite a bit. But by the time Chu Chinga finished eating, the sedan chair still hadn't arrived. Zhao Mama immediately understood what was going on. She raged, those cheap bastards who take the money but don't do the work. Don't think they can disregard this old servant just because I'm no longer in the palace. When I was serving in the palace, the Empress Dowager wasn't the Empress Dowager yet. The Emperor wasn't the Emperor yet either. Han Yunqi looked at Zhao Mama, her mouth twitching. She never expected the woman to have such a valiant side. She couldn't help but think back to all those years ago, when the Empress Dowager and Grand Concubine Yi, Emperor Tianhui, and the Duke of Qin fought to the death in the imperial harem. Long Fei Yi must have been very young then. Aya, why are you guys still here? Chu Chinga's voice suddenly rang out. Han Yunqi looked back and saw the woman walking towards them. Behind her, court ladies were cleaning up the table of leftover food. Han Yunqi ignored her and murmured, Zhao Mama, let's walk over. We've got nothing better to do, anyways. Seeing that they were about to leave, Chu Chinga laughed out loud. Han Yunqi, if you're hungry, I'll tell them to stop cleaning up. You guys can go eat. Zhao Mama grew angry. This Miss Chu wasn't cute at all. Esteemed Wang Fei hadn't provoked her all morning, so why was she provoking her all the time? Miss Chu, the mistress of this palace, just died. Aren't you afraid that she'll come begging you for food tonight by eating and drinking to your heart's content in her side hall? Zhao Mama asked seriously. Chu Chinga felt a chill run down her back at those words. She subconsciously glanced back at the memorial tablet and coffin in the main hall and felt her hairs stand on end. Old servant, what nonsense are you spouting? That's a gift from His Majesty. Are you saying that His Majesty was wrong? Chu Chinga retorted. Miss Chu, esteemed concubine Yun won't be happy if you keep talking about His Majesty this and that. Esteemed concubine Yun likes to get jealous all the time. Don't you know that? Zhao Mama reminded her faintly. Chu Chinga's hair stood on end, but she refused to admit defeat. What, are you jealous because His Majesty favors me? Zhao Mama laughed. What are you saying, Miss Chu? Everyone in the imperial harem knows that His Majesty has always been fair and impartial. How could he favor you? If we're talking about favoritism, His Highness Duke of Qin does it all the time. Han Yunxi didn't even plan to speak. For the first time, she realized how interesting it was to have Zhao Mama by her side. She was certain that Chu Chinga didn't understand the true meaning of Zhao Mama's words. Everyone in the imperial harem knew that His Majesty was fair and impartial. If they found out that he cared for Chu Chinga so much, she'd have a hard time staying in the palace for the next 2 or 3 days. The struggles of the women in the imperial harem were often more terrifying and cruel than the struggles of the men in court. Even the emperor himself couldn't take care of them all. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many tragic deaths and miscarriages. As expected, Chu Chinga didn't catch the main point of Zhao Mama's words. She laughed coldly and said, "Is that so? Then why don't I see His Highness Duke of Qin delivering food? Qin Wangfei, I heard that His Highness Duke of Qin dotes on you a lot. Now it looks like the rumors are just rumors." Unfortunately, Chu Chinga had hardly finished speaking when a eunuch announced loudly from outside, "His Highness Duke of Qin has arrived." Chapter 329. His Highness Duke of Qin had arrived? The announcement sent Chu Chinga straight to the 18th level of hell. Leaving aside Chu Chinga, even Han Yunxi and Zhao Mama were in disbelief. Long Fei Ye's here? For real? Fake? While the three of them were still trying to figure out what to do, Long Fei Yi walked through the gates by himself. Today, he was dressed in brocade palace robes and had a jade belt around his waist. His black hair was tied up high, giving him an indescribable air of elegance. He walked towards everyone. He didn't wear any fancy clothes or ostentatious clothes, but his innate nobility and kingly demeanor gave people the impression that he was the master. It was as if the entire vast palace belonged to him. Han Yunxi's lips unconsciously curved into a happy smile, while Chu Chinga's face was burning hot. She was too ashamed to show her face. She just provoked Han Yunxi when Long Fei Yi showed up. This was a slap to her face. Why'd he come? She had once collected all sorts of information about him like a madwoman and learned all of his likes and dislikes. From what she understood, Long Fei Yi had left the palace after being named Duke of Qin. Ever since then, he'd detested entering the palace. Unless the Emperor or Empress Dowager summoned him, or if it was an important matter, he'd never enter the palace. Did he come just for Han Yunxi? Seeing Long Fei Yi walk towards her, Chu Chinga dearly wished that he'd walk towards her. But Long Fei Yi walked in front of Han Yunxi instead. "What time is it now? Why are you still here?" he asked mildly. Even his voice was low and mesmerizing. Han Yunxi didn't know what he meant, but Zhao Mama reacted quickly. "To reply, Your Highness, the sedan chair arrived late. This old servant was just about to accompany esteemed Wang Fei back. By now, they should have finished their lunch and taken a nap." Actually, Long Fei Yi had gone to Han Yunxi's quarters to look for her, but found no one there. "Zhao Mama, go ask which servants carried the palanquin," Long Fei said coldly. Yes, this old servant understands. In fact, without Long Fei Ye's instructions, Zhao Mama would definitely pursue this matter. In the depths of the palace, even the Emperor and Empress Dowager couldn't manage the affairs of the concubines, let alone the servants. Granny Zhao had been working in the palace for most of her life. She had her own connections and power. As long as the masters didn't interfere, it would be easy for her to investigate this matter. Han Yunxi, accompany this prince to the palace for a meal. Long Fei Yi gave an order, not a discussion. After he finished speaking, he took Han Yunxi's hand and left. This guy was just that simple and crude. He never spoke nonsense. Han Yunqi didn't even have a chance to say a word, but she liked it. She kept up with Long Fei Ye's footsteps, but didn't forget to give Chu Qingge a smug smile. It was both a show-off and a provocation. Han Yunqi didn't say anything. Her silent smile was even more sarcastic. Chu Qingge found the sight an eyesore. She couldn't help but shout, "Your Highness Duke of Qin!" How could Long Fei Yi pay any attention to her? Before Han Yunqi had appeared, this man's eyes had never rested on a woman. After Han Yunqi's appearance, his eyes had never rested on another woman. Chu Qingge wasn't satisfied and shouted again, "Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei has to investigate a case. She has to stay in the palace for the next few days." "Who said you can't leave the palace?" "Miss Chu, you can ask His Majesty to take you out to play." Han Yunqi couldn't help but speak up. Chu Qingge had been using Emperor Tianhui to show off before, so she didn't understand the true meaning behind Han Yunqi's words. She chased after her a few steps before asking angrily, "Han Yunqi, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to find out the truth?" Investigating a case was different from poisoning and treating poisons. It was much more complicated. This woman's poison skills were good, but that didn't mean she was good at investigating cases. "Nothing's more important than accompanying your Highness Duke of Qin for a meal," Han Yunqi replied with a smile. Chu Qingge had been showing off for so long, so how could she not do the same? All right, she must be overjoyed. She didn't hold back at all in front of Long Fei Yi and revealed her true nature. Long Fei Yi gave a start before looking sideways at her, only to see Han Yunqi engrossed in her battle of words with Chu Qingge. She was extremely excited. His lips curved up in a doting smile that he didn't even notice. He silently turned back and let her do as she pleased. How was Chu Qingge supposed to fight Han Yunqi now? She had nothing to say. She'd lost completely. She wanted to curse Han Yunqi for being shameless, but Han Yunqi was Long Fei Ye's official consort. It was perfectly normal for her to say such things, so what reason did she have to curse her? She wanted nothing more than to tell Long Fei Yi how much she'd adored him over the years, but her pride and upbringing prevented her from doing so. Girls needed to be reserved and self-loving. No matter how much they liked someone, they couldn't take the initiative. She'd been doing her best to show him that she wanted his attention, but Long Fei hadn't spared her a single glance from the moment he'd stepped through the door despite her and Han Yunqi's struggles. Chu Qingge stared at Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi's retreating forms, unwilling to accept this. But just as Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi were about to leave, Emperor Tianhui showed up. Actually, he'd left just then because Long Fei Yi had entered the palace. Because of the Northern Li affair, Emperor Tianhui had summoned Long Fei Yi. He assumed that Long Fei Yi would arrive at night, but he'd arrived early. At the sight of Emperor Tianhui, Chu Qingge quickly complained, "Your Majesty, we agreed to investigate the case in 3 days, but Qin Wangfei's in such a rush to leave the palace. She must have uncovered the truth already?" "Your Majesty, we agreed to investigate the case in 3 days, but we didn't say we'd be grounded for 3 days, did we?" Han Yunqi retorted. She hadn't made it clear that she could leave the palace within 3 days. The decision was in Emperor Tianhui's hands, so he could say whatever he wanted. "Your Majesty, we agreed on this back then," Chu Qingge emphasized. She refused to believe that Han Yunqi would be able to leave now that Emperor Tianhui was here. But Emperor Tianhui only smiled amiably. "Why would I be grounded? Duke of Qin, Jin thought you were at the Sweet Liquid Palace. As it turns out, you were leaving the palace. Did Emperor Tianhui send Chu Qingge's lunch here for nothing?" He'd predicted that Han Yunqi would return for lunch and lunch break, which was the perfect time to spend alone time with Chu Qingge. Last night, he'd invited Duanmu Bei and Chu Tianyin to drink, while hinting at Chu Qingge's marriage alliance. Neither of them had any objections. Duanmu Bei represented Western Zhou's imperial clan, while Chu Tianyin represented the Chu clan. If neither of them had any objections, then it meant that the marriage was a done deal. He didn't know that his servants had been bold enough to delay Han Yunqi's sedan chair on purpose, but it didn't matter if Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi were here. Weren't they leaving soon? Long Fei Yi replied. Qin Wangfei, don't forget the 3-day deadline, Emperor Tianhui reminded her kindly. Many thanks to your majesty for the reminder, Han Yunqi said, before giving Chu Qingge a meaningful look. Then we won't disturb you two any longer. Chu Qingge finally realized that Han Yunqi's words were off. What did she mean by that? Emperor Tianhui understood the meaning behind Han Yunqi's words as well. But Chu Qingge would be his sooner or later. He didn't mind if Han Yunqi figured it out. Han Yunqi happily left with Long Fei Yi, while Zhao Mama happily went to settle accounts with the sedan chair servants. Aside from the palace guards, only Emperor Tianhui and Chu Qingge were left in Consort Yun's palace. Miss Chu wants to leave the palace as well? Emperor Tianhui asked with a smile. He was already in his 40s. Although he took good care of himself, the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were still obvious. His kind smile reminded Chu Qingge of her father. Chu Qingge was busy investigating the case, so how could she really want to leave the palace? No, Qingge still has to investigate, she replied simply before walking towards a side hall in disappointment. Emperor Tianhui followed her in and signaled for all the servants to withdraw with a look. Chu Qingge immediately sensed that something was off. Your Majesty, what's this? She asked cautiously. Miss Chu, what did you find out about Consort Yun's case? Tell Zhen all about it, Emperor Tianhui grinned. When he wasn't so serious, he had the air of a scholar. It wasn't that Chu Qingge wasn't on guard, but that she'd never considered the possibility. She assumed that Emperor Tianhui had other ideas about Consort Yun's case. Emperor Tianhui sat down and gestured for her to do the same. But as soon as Chu Qingge sat down, Emperor Tianhui suddenly took her hand in his. Alarmed, Chu Qingge shrank back and pushed him away. Your Majesty, you... She finally understood what was going on. Emperor Tianhui actually... No. Her hairs stood on end at the thought. Emperor Tianhui was old enough to be her father. Emperor Tianhui had more or less predicted that Chu Qingge would react this way. Since he'd taken a liking to this woman, he'd naturally investigated her thoroughly. This woman had a cold personality and had no lack of suitors, but none of them had ever caught her eye. Emperor Tianhui muttered to himself, near Qingming, spirits on the branches of the jade birds. It's a pity that all my songs have gone to waste at dusk. Qingge, Qingge. Emperor Tianhui sighed with emotion as he rose to his feet and walked towards Chu Qingge. Qingge, how about you leave your love songs in Zhen's heart? What a poetic confession. But Chu Qingge's entire body turned cold. She unconsciously reached for the bow on her back, but weapons weren't allowed in the palace. She'd left her bow outside. Her entire body trembled as she backed away step by step. She didn't even know how to answer Emperor Tianhui's question. She didn't want it. She backed into a chair and fell on her butt. Your Majesty, where's my big brother? Where's Crown Prince Yi? I want to see them. I want to leave the palace and see them. She was on the verge of tears. She couldn't accept Emperor Tianhui's sudden display of affection. Fortunately, Emperor Tianhui didn't press any closer. Faced with Chu Qingge's pale face and speechless face, he only took 2 steps forward before stopping. It looks like Miss Chu needs time to think things over. Zhen will give you 2 days to finish investigating Consort Yun's case before Zhen comes looking for you. Emperor Tianhui might be lustful, but he wouldn't force things. After all, Chu Qingge's birth was obvious. Still, he was confident that Chu Qingge wouldn't be able to escape from his grasp. As soon as he left Consort Yun's palace, he murmured to eunuch Luo, summon Qinhuang Rong to the palace. Zhen has important matters to attend to. Despite his lust, Emperor Tianhui hadn't forgotten about Long Fei Ye's threats. He'd just finished discussing Northern Li with the Long Fei Yi when he summoned Qinhuang Rong. They were still investigating Long Fei Ye's origins. Over the past few days, Emperor Tianhui had been pressuring General Mu's estate to take full control of the infantry forces. It was a long time after Emperor Tianhui left that Chu Qingge recovered from her shock and fear. She recalled Han Yunqi's parting words and was so angry that she could smell blood. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have investigated Consort Yun's case at all. She wouldn't have come to Tianning at all. What was she supposed to do? She couldn't help but wonder what Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi were doing right now. Finally, tears streamed down her face. Chapter 330. What were Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi doing now? Long Fei Yi didn't bring Han Yunqi back to the Duke of Qin's estate for dinner, but to a famous tea house in the capital for refreshments. The second floor of the tea house was a place for storytelling. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi sat in a booth by the window, separated from the main hall by a beaded curtain. They could hear the storytelling while maintaining privacy. Long Fei Yi liked to drink tea. That was the only thing Han Yunqi knew about his preferences. He ordered a pot of black tea and handed the menu to Han Yunqi. Was this guy very free today? He actually had time to ask her out for tea? Regardless of whether he was free or not, Han Yunqi was very happy. She skimmed through the menu and asked, "What would your highness like to eat?" "You decide." Long Fei Yi only had requirements for tea. Han Yunqi chose a few things she liked, then asked, "What would your highness like to eat?" "You decide." "You don't need to ask in the future," Long Fei Yi said mildly. In the future? Was he going to ask her out for tea often in the future? Oh! Han Yunqi was in a very good mood. Han Yunqi was hungry, so she ordered a table full of pastries. Most of them were sweets because she liked sweets. "Your highness was looking for me? For something?" All right, Han Yunqi knew her limits. This busy man wasn't Gu, so why would he ask her out for tea for no reason? "I just happened to go to the palace to talk about the coup in northern Li with Tianhui. So I came to see you while I was at it," Long Fei Yi said honestly. "Actually, you could have lied," Han Yunqi muttered to herself. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi heard her and looked towards Han Yunqi with a strange expression. Han Yunqi immediately shut her mouth and averted her gaze, not daring to look at him. Long Fei Yi stared at her for a long time without speaking. Han Yunqi felt very awkward as she tried to guess at Long Fei Yi's current expression and what he was thinking. They'd agreed to take 99 steps. But when she thought about it seriously, she realized that even taking a single step was so difficult. Actually, if Han Yunqi was brave enough to turn around and look, she would definitely see Long Fei Yi's teasing smile. He didn't seem to be angry. In fact, he liked seeing her embarrassed. She was used to the silence between the two of them, but under these circumstances, Han Yunqi couldn't sit still. Han Yunqi pretended that nothing had happened and changed the topic. "Has there been a coup in northern Li? Did Jun Yixie fall from power?" She and Long Fei Yi had not only exposed Jun Yixie and Duanmu Yao's collusion in Medical City, but also revealed that Jun Yixie was the head of the 100 Poison sect. Duanmu Yao was forced to hide in Tianshan Kenzo, too afraid to return to Western Zhou. Jun Yixie's troubles were the biggest. His identity as the head of the 100 Poison sect had caused a huge uproar in Northern Li's imperial clan, and the 100 Poison sect had attracted the attention of Medical City's higher-ups because of the coup. Lately, Jun Yixie had been burning a candle at both ends. He could only care about his head and not his feet. There's news that Jun Yixie's power has been taken away by the Northern Dynasty's emperors. It's uncertain whether it's true or not, Long Fei Yi replied mildly. Han Yunqi finally dared to look over, only to see Long Fei Yi's innately cold face. The situation in northern Li was unclear and unpredictable, but one thing was for sure. Once northern Li stabilized, Tianning and Western Zhou would become restless. On the other hand, internal strife in northern Li would give Tianning and Western Zhou a chance to strengthen themselves. The three-way battlefield, where the three countries intersected, had small skirmishes that kept Tianning and Western Zhou on edge. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. He's in big trouble, Han Yunqi said hatefully. When she recalled Jun Yixie's humiliation, she felt a lingering fear in her heart. Fortunately, the white-robed man had arrived in time. Of course, lingering fear was only lingering fear. She wasn't that weak and could still face it. She swore to herself that she wouldn't let Jun Yixie off. Of course, aside from the two major problems, Jun Yixie also had to deal with the poison in his shoulder. This was a new poison that Han Yunqi had created. It was a chronic rheumatic poison that wasn't fatal, but could torment Junie Xie for the rest of his life. Every time it rained or cloudy, Junie Xie's shoulder would be in incomparable pain. No matter what he did, he couldn't relieve the pain. He could only endure it or cut off his arm. Han Yunqi had only created a single antidote, and she had long thrown it away. From then on, she would never create another antidote or use this poison again. She wanted the entire world to never have an antidote again. Although Han Yunqi hated him in her heart, Long Fei Yi could still sense her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing. I just really hate that person." Han Yunqi didn't want Long Fei Yi to know about that unpleasant memory. When she told Long Fei Yi about the white-clothed gentleman saving her, she directly skipped over this matter. Junie Xie was placed in an important position by the Northern Dynasty's emperors, so he won't fall so easily, Long Fei Yi said indifferently. Junie Xie wasn't a member of the imperial family. He was only the adopted son of the Northern Dynasty's emperors, but he was so powerful that there must be a reason behind it. Han Yunqi didn't understand the current situation in Northern Li, so she didn't think too deeply about it. She just let out a disappointed "oh." She didn't know that the first thing Long Fei Yi did after returning from Medicine City was to send people to Northern Li. Long before Junie Xie kidnapped Han Yunqi in the Sky Pit, he had already warned Junie Xie. "Junie Xie, your lordship will make you regret this." There were many things that Han Yunqi would never know if Long Fei Yi didn't tell her. Han Yunqi didn't want to talk about Junie Xie, so she smiled and said, "Your Highness, aren't you afraid that I won't be able to find out the truth and lose to Chuqinga?" Long Fei Yi was a little lost. He hadn't cared about the case at all. If noble consort Xiao didn't have the ability to solve this problem herself, then there was no point in keeping her in the palace. As Aunt Ru had said, he never raised useless people. Why should I be afraid? Long Fei Yi didn't understand. Han Yunqi was amused, her face full of gossip. "Your Highness, can't you tell that His Majesty has taken a fancy to Chuqinga?" Long Fei Yi was very intelligent, no, wise and farsighted, but sometimes he really couldn't understand this woman's logic. "What does that have to do with whether you win or lose?" Long Fei Yi asked seriously. If Aunt Ru and the rest were here, they'd be surprised that Long Fei Yi seemed to be talking too much today. "Your Highness, if I make Chuqinga lose miserably, then maybe Emperor Tianhui won't be so infatuated with her." Actually, Han Yunqi was more than happy to see Chuqinga marry Emperor Tianhui. Even if she set aside all the complicated conflicts between them, still, she was still rational. Once Chuqinga married into Tianning's imperial clan, she'd be a noble consort at the very least. Wouldn't she come looking for trouble every day then? Moreover, Chuqinga has the backing of a great general from Western Zhou behind her. Chuqinga was different from Duanmuyao. Although Duanmuyao's status was higher than Chuqinga's, it was only an empty title. Otherwise, Emperor Tianhui wouldn't have tried so hard to match her with Long Fei Yi. Chuqinga's own archery skills were excellent, but she had the backing of an entire army from Western Zhou behind her. In a struggle for power, nothing could compare to actual military strength. Once Chuqinga married Emperor Tianhui, he'd have another bargaining chip to suppress Long Fei Yi. In any case, Chuqinga's marriage would only bring them more harm than good. Han Yunqi's analysis was very serious. Long Fei Yi listened while drinking tea. When Han Yunqi finally finished, he said, "It doesn't matter if you lose, but your lordship likes it when you win." Han Yunqi was stunned. She suddenly felt like she was overthinking things and worrying over nothing. Does this guy even look down on Western Zhou's Chu clan? Just how strong is he? Just how much strength is he hiding? Long Fei Yi finished his tea and rose to his feet. "Are we going back?" Actually, they'd been sitting for a long time and had talked a lot, but Han Yunqi felt like they'd only sat for a little while. She felt like she had so many things to tell this guy, but she didn't know what else to say. Despite her reluctance, she rose to her feet and said, "I want to go to General Bailey's estate." It had been days since she'd visited Bailey Mingxiang, so she didn't know how she was doing. Taking medicine so often meant that the poison would flare up more often. Let's go, your lordship wants to go as well, Long Fei Yi intoned. Han Yunqi originally thought that Long Fei Yi was going to visit Bailey Mingxiang, but who knew that when they arrived at General Bailey's estate, Long Fei Yi would have a secret meeting with General Bailey. When Han Yunqi arrived at Bailey Mingxiang's room, Bailey Mingxiang's poison had just ended. Bailey Mingxiang had cleaned herself up and was resting on the chaise lounge. Her small face was so pale that it was devoid of color. Bailey Mingxiang chatted with Han Yunqi for a long time before she casually asked, "I heard from the servants that His Highness is here?" He's in your father's study," Han Yunqi replied as she took Bailey Mingxiang's pulse. In Bailey Mingxiang's entire year, she'd only seen His Highness from afar at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. How she wished that there would be more banquets in the palace. Bailey Mingxiang hid everything deep in her heart and didn't ask any more questions. Instead, it was Han Yunqi who asked her, "Miss Bailey, was His Highness's temperament like this when he was young?" Mingxiang rarely saw His Highness, but I heard that it was like this. Bailey Mingxiang's answer was very cautious. "I feel that he's a bit depressed." Han Yunqi would only say something like this to Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang didn't even say anything to Zhao Mama. Who knew if Zhao Mama would spread the news to Long Fei Ye's ears if she found out? In her impression, Bailey Mingxiang was just one of Long Fei's subordinates. She was just like his guards, respectful and obedient to his orders. In reality, Bailey Mingxiang was indeed like this. Depressed, Bailey Mingxiang muttered to herself. She didn't expect that Han Yunqi would be able to see Long Fei Ye's depressed side. Bailey Mingxiang really wanted to say that she didn't understand, but she couldn't help but think of the scene by the lotus pond many years ago. That youth with cold eyes and heavy brows. She sighed softly, "Esteemed Wang Fei. How can someone who has the world in his heart be carefree and unrestrained?" That's right, Long Fei Yi had the world in his heart. It was a world that was even bigger than what she could imagine. Han Yunqi smiled. "Miss Bailey, you really do understand him." Han Yunqi was just casually saying this, but Bailey Mingxiang's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly said, "Esteemed Wang Fei, Mingxiang can't bear your words. His Highness's thoughts aren't something that can be casually guessed." Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang, you love Long Fei Yi to the point that it's in your blood. You love Long Fei Yi so much that even Han Yunqi can't see it. Bailey Mingxiang was panicking when a maidservant's voice came from outside the door. "Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness is waiting for you in the guest hall. He wants you to go over when you're done." Chapter 331. Long Fei Yi still had matters to attend to, so Han Yunqi didn't dare delay. She left a few words with Bailey Mingxiang before leaving. However, she didn't know that Bailey Mingxiang had followed her as soon as she arrived at the guest hall and was waiting by the wall outside. Not long after, she saw His Highness and Han Yunqi come out one after the other. As soon as they reached the door, His Highness took Han Yunqi's hand. She knew that His Highness treated Han Yunqi special, but she never expected it to be like this. The action of holding hands was so natural, as if they'd been used to it for many years. "Your Highness, from the moment I saw you, I thought you wouldn't fall in love with anyone." Bitterness welled up in Bailey Mingxiang's heart, but her smile was still as gentle as ever. She smiled as she watched the person she'd been thinking about for more than 10 years disappear into the distance. Even when she couldn't see him anymore, she still stubbornly watched. "Xiang why are you doing this?" Suddenly, an unhappy voice came from behind her. Bailey Mingxiang jumped in fright. She turned around and saw that the person standing behind her was none other than her father, Bailey Yuanlong. "Father, I just came over. Has His Highness and the others left?" She pretended to be calm as she asked indifferently. "You're still pretending in front of your father?" Bailey Yuanlong reprimanded unhappily. "Father, Mingxiang doesn't know what you're talking about." Bailey Mingxiang was at a loss. "You and His Highness, you... Girl, you should understand your status." Bailey Yuanlong's tone softened. "Father, don't worry. Mingxiang has always understood my status and mission. Mingxiang definitely won't disappoint you and His Highness. Bailey Mingxiang's tone was so resolute that Bailey Yuanlong wondered if he'd seen wrong. Bailey Yuanlong couldn't say anything else and could only leave. As soon as he left, Bailey Mingxiang recovered from her grief. She almost ran to the door, hoping to take one more look. She really wasn't sure if she'd be able to see His Highness again before the beauty's blood matured. Unfortunately, when she arrived, Long Fei Ye's carriage had already left. In the carriage, Han Yunxi was conflicted for a moment before she asked pitifully, "Your Highness, I want to go home. Can you send me home?" Although Emperor Tianhui and the Empress Dowager didn't forbid them from leaving the palace, the Empress Dowager had arranged living quarters for her and Chu Qingge. It was obvious that she wanted them to stay in the palace for the next 3 days. If she did not want to live in the palace, she could only ask Long Fei Yi to help her settle it. Long Fei Yi looked at her expressionlessly and didn't say anything. Han Yunxi waited for a while. Seeing that Long Fei Yi didn't respond, she could only lower her eyes resentfully. Before long, Han Yunxi raised her head again. "Your Highness, I don't want to return to the palace." However, Long Fei Yi still ignored her. This time, Han Yunxi was thoroughly listless. At a time like this, it'd be better if she didn't cause him any more trouble. But when the carriage stopped and Han Yunxi got off, she didn't see the palace gates, but the familiar Duke of Qin's estate. Han Yunxi was both surprised and delighted. She didn't know what to say, but could only smile foolishly. Long Fei Ye's face was as cold as ice. Icily, he said, "Is it that funny? Why aren't you going inside?" Oh, Han Yunxi might not be smiling anymore, but her happiness was written all over her face. After making sure Han Yunxi was inside, Long Fei turned around and couldn't help but break into a soundless laugh. Han Yunxi didn't enter the palace until the morning of the 3rd day. Neither the Empress Dowager nor Emperor Tianhui pursued the matter. Heaven knows how Chu Qingge had spent the past 3 days. As soon as she saw Han Yunxi, her gaze was enough to kill someone. "Miss Chu, have you found the murderer?" Han Yunxi asked with a grin. Although there was still a day left, Han Yunxi didn't want to waste it. If Long Fei Yi hadn't shown up the day before yesterday, she would have told the truth long ago. She could see through a small case like noble Consort Yun at a glance. Chu Qingge hadn't overestimated herself, but underestimated her. Chu Qingge had already found out everything about noble Consort Yun's palace. She already had proof that noble Consort Xiao had been framed, so she needed to find out who did it. Although Emperor Tianhui had scared her out of her wits, Chu Qingge still maintained her haughty, lofty, and cold demeanor before Han Yunxi. "Esteemed Wang Fei, took you so long to come back. You must have found out the truth long ago, right? Why don't we find the Empress Dowager and Emperor so they can hear you tell them how noble Consort Yun died?" Chu Qingge smiled mockingly, but Han Yunxi simply replied, "All right, go invite them." "You?" Chu Qingge was frightened. "Han Yunxi, don't joke with me." "Who's joking with you?" "Someone come. Invite the Empress Dowager and Emperor over. Just say that this Wang Fei's already found the true culprit behind the poisoning." Han Yunxi said loudly. Chu Qingge shook her head in disbelief. It wasn't until the Empress Dowager and Emperor Tianhui arrived that she realized it was all true. "Yunxi, I knew you had the skills." The Empress Dowager was as kind as ever, but only towards Han Yunxi, not Chu Qingge. Chu Qingge was so nauseous that she couldn't think straight. Tianning's Empress Dowager clearly disliked Han Yunxi, so she should be on her side. Emperor Tianhui was on her side, but she didn't even dare to look at him right now, much less show off in front of him. All she could do was remain silent. She only wanted to see what kind of truth Han Yunxi could give them. Could she really find out in a single day? Han Yunxi truly didn't like any of the people in front of her. She was in a hurry to get things done so she could leave the palace for business. She took out the poison she'd found in noble Consort Zhao's palace. "This is a red snow pole. Only the entire bottle is lethal. Noble Consort Xiao only has half a bottle. First, noble Consort Xiao wouldn't be stupid enough to keep the poison on her body after poisoning her. Second, noble consort Yun wouldn't have died if only half a bottle was used. This was a court lady framing her. She didn't know anything about poisons, so she wasn't the one who poisoned her. Nonsense. Chu Chinga laughed coldly. She'd said the same thing on the first day. Noble consort Zhao's court lady, Bao Zhu, had taken out the poison. Bao Zhu had confessed that noble consort Xiao had ordered her to poison her. Judging from the half bottle, Bao Zhu was lying. Han Yunxi ignored Chu Chinga and continued to speak. Judging from noble consort Yun's corpse, she was poisoned with the entire bottle's worth of poison. That's not much. In other words, there's still half a bottle of poison missing. Chu Chinga laughed coldly again at her words. She'd found that out long ago as well. She'd been searching for the other half of the bottle for the past 2 days. Han Yunxi still ignored her and continued. Why is there only half a bottle in noble consort Zhao's place? Where did the other half go? I expect you've already found it, Chu Chinga asked. She refused to believe that Han Yunxi could find the other half of the bottle in a single day. Leaving aside the fact that the other half might have been destroyed, even if it was still there, it'd take a long time to find it. I found it. It's in Li Changzai's palace. Of course, I'll have to go take a look to find out where it is, Han Yunxi replied seriously. Everyone was stunned by the sudden mention of someone they didn't want to do. Only the Empress Dowager remained calm. Coldly, she ordered, someone come, search Li Changzai's flying cloud courtyard. Soon enough, they really did find half a bottle of red snowpole in Li Changzai's soaring cloud courtyard. Chu Chinga couldn't believe it and almost asked Han Yunxi how she knew. But for the sake of saving face, she held back. Once the bottle was found, Li Changzai was brought before the Empress Dowager. She cried out, "Esteemed Empress Dowager, Your Majesty, Chenxia doesn't know a thing. If Chenxia knew poisons, I wouldn't have left only half a bottle in the palace. Chenxia and noble consort Xiao are both wrongly accused." Wrongly accused? Each and every one of you has the gall to do something like this right under my nose. Do you all want to die? The Empress Dowager scolded. At this moment, Court Lady Bao Zhu suddenly started crying. "Esteemed Empress Dowager, spare me, spare me. This servant will confess. This servant will confess everything." It was Li Changzai who told this servant to frame noble consort Xiao. This servant was afraid that she'd bite me back, so I secretly left half a bottle in her palace. This servant is the one who doesn't know anything about poisons. This servant didn't poison her. It was Li Changzai who did. Chu Chinga was stunned by her words. She never thought things would turn out like this. She was even wondering why Li Changzai only had half a bottle in the palace. Han Yunxi only smiled coldly. She could see through everything. She knew that the true culprit behind the scenes was the Empress Dowager, while Li Changzai was nothing more than an innocent scapegoat. The Empress Dowager had done countless framing schemes in her life. She was an old hand at it, a crafty one at that. She'd circled the case around once more. She'd bribed both Li Changzai and Court Lady Bao Zhu to leave the other half of the bottle in Li Changzai's hands. Without a doubt, she'd left a backup plan to prevent anyone from investigating the case. As luck would have it, Chu Chinga and Han Yunxi had arrived to investigate. Even if they found out that Li Changzai hadn't framed noble consort Xiao, they'd at least get rid of the favored noble consort Yun. The Empress Dowager would still reap some benefits. Han Yunxi originally wanted to walk around and find the whereabouts of the other half of the bottle of poison. Unfortunately, Soaring Cloud's courtyard was between her residence and noble consort Yun's palace. She was all too familiar with the red snowpole, so the detox system could detect it even from a long distance away. When she passed by Soaring Cloud's courtyard, the detox system had already warned her. Now was the time for real evidence and witnesses. The Empress Dowager couldn't find any clues at all. Moreover, Li Changzai and Bao Zhu would never betray the Empress Dowager. Nor would they dare. Everything had been done flawlessly. It wasn't that Han Yunxi didn't want to investigate, but that she couldn't find any evidence. This was the terror of the imperial harem. Very well. A trifling Changzai and court lady actually dared to frame noble consort Yun. You've got guts. Someone come. Take them away and give each of them 30 floggings. The Empress Dowager raged. Li Changzai and Bao Zhu were naturally begging for mercy, but it was all an act. Soon enough, they vanished without a trace. Han Yunqi stared at the empty doorway and only felt that the imperial harem was a bottomless pit that ate people alive. Esteemed Empress Dowager, Your Majesty, since the truth of the case has come to light, then Yunqi will take her leave. The Empress Dowager was very satisfied and wanted Han Yunqi to leave as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Emperor Tianhui had no interest in the case to begin with. No matter how favored noble consort Yun was, she couldn't compare to the newbie Xiao. Han Yunqi left first, leaving Chu Qingge stunned in place. She had no idea how Han Yunqi had discovered the poison. She finally realized how formidable Han Yunqi's poison skills were. Your Majesty, I've lost. It was rare for the icy beauty to admit defeat, but Emperor Tianhui didn't mind. Victory and defeat are commonplace in war. Miss Chu shouldn't be unhappy. Have you considered the matter from yesterday? Chapter 332. If this was any other time, Emperor Tianhui's victory and defeat are commonplace in war would have comforted Chu Qingge greatly. But now she couldn't help but feel a chill run through her body as she backed up a few steps. Fortunately, the Empress Dowager was still here. Otherwise, she wouldn't know what to do. She had no weapons in her hands, and this was Tianning's imperial palace. As long as Emperor Tianhui wanted to keep her here, it'd be impossible for her to leave. Miss Chu, have you thought things over clearly from last time? Emperor Tianhui asked, seemingly unconcerned by the Empress Dowager's presence. A mother knew her son best, so the Empress Dowager could guess Emperor Tianhui's intentions. She should have left, but she didn't. She'd like to see how Chu Qingge would answer. I'm indebted to Your Majesty's misplaced love. Qingge already has someone in her heart. Chu Qingge refused politely. She swore that she'd never set foot in the palace again. She didn't want to see Emperor Tianhui ever again, because the shadow in her heart was too great. Emperor Tianhui seemed to be very confident in himself. His eyes flashed with displeasure, but he didn't show it. It looks like Zhen was a step too late, he said with an open-minded smile. Chu Qingge lowered her head and didn't reply. Emperor Tianhui studied Chu Qingge for a long time before saying, Someone come, escort Miss Chu out of the palace. Chu Qingge was surprised by his words. She never expected Emperor Tianhui to be so easy to deal with. She felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders, but she didn't have time to think. Many thanks to Your Majesty. After bidding farewell to the Empress Dowager and Emperor Tianhui, Chu Qingge left, wishing she could fly out of this terrifying place. The Empress Dowager stared at her retreating figure from a distance, a cold smile rising to her lips. No wonder this Miss Chu lost to Han Yunqi. So she was such a brainless woman. How could Emperor Tianhui let her off so easily? Duanmu Bei and Chu Tianin had long sold her out. How could such a stupid woman fight against her? But not long after Chu Qingge entered the palace as an imperial concubine, the Empress Dowager realized she was the stupid one. Emperor, since the truth of the case has come to light, it's time to bury noble consort Yun, the Empress Dowager said carelessly. No one knew the truth behind noble consort Yun's death better than Emperor Tianhui. He knew why the Empress Dowager wanted to promote noble consort Shui. 2. Mu Fei can handle it. Emperor Tianhui seemed indifferent as well. Then he left. As soon as Chu Qingge left the palace, she went back to her quarters and started pounding on Chu Tianin's door. At this time, Chu Tianin and Duanmu Bei were discussing something in the room. As soon as the door opened, Chu Qingge whimpered and hugged Chu Tianin. Sob sob. Big brother? Sob sob. Chu Tianin pushed her away. Although they were siblings, he was not used to such intimate contact. What's wrong with you? Did you lose? Chu Qingge sniffled and prepared to speak, but stopped when she saw Duanmu Bei's presence. Duanmu Bei's eyes flashed with coldness. He smiled and said, Qingge, a loss is a loss. It's no big deal. Let me tell you some good news. Do you want to hear it? Chu Qingge wanted to tell Chu Tianyin about what had happened in the palace, but with Duanmu Bei around, she could only endure. She had always been cold and aloof, so how could she easily shed tears in front of outsiders? She wiped her face and quickly regained her composure. Your Highness, if you have any good news, please tell me to be happy. Haha, I must congratulate you. Duanmu Bei laughed. Congratulate? What do you mean? Chu Qingge didn't understand. Tianyin, it's better if you say it, Duanmu Bei was in a very good mood. He had been ordered to explain and apologize for Duanmu Yao's actions. He assumed that Emperor Tianhui would make things difficult for him, but everything had gone smoothly thanks to Chu Qingge. Big brother, what's the good news? Chu Qingge asked curiously. His Majesty has already decreed that you should marry Emperor Tianhui through a marriage alliance. Tomorrow we'll set out for Western Zhou to prepare for the marriage alliance. Compared to Duanmu Bei's excitement, Chu Tianyin was much calmer. Chu Qingge gave a start at these words before she gave Chu Tianyin a shove. You guys sold me out, she cried. She felt like a complete idiot. No wonder Emperor Tianhui had let her out of the palace so easily. So everything had already been arranged. Everything was set in stone. Western Zhou's emperor had already decreed her marriage alliance. But Emperor Tianhui still asked her such a question. What did he mean by that? Chu Qingge was not only disgusted, but terrified. Chu Tianyin didn't speak, but Chu Qingge gave him another shove, narrowly missing him. Are you still my big brother? Now Duanmu Bei was unhappy. Coldly he said, Chu Qingge, you're being impudent. These are His Majesty's orders. Are you saying that he sold you out? There are plenty of people who want to marry into Tianning. Don't be ignorant of your good fortune. Then you guys should find someone else. Why me? Chu Qingge roared, her face ashen and eyes red. She was in a terrible state. Impudence. What kind of attitude is this? Duanmu Bei slapped the table and rose to his feet. Although he was on good terms with the Chu siblings, that didn't mean they could treat him with disrespect. Chu Qingge was about to lose her temper when Chu Tianyin stopped her. Qingge, this is father's wish as well. The Chu clan will be proud of you. In a flash, Chu Qingge froze. Chu Tianyin's words were like a basin of ice water that drenched her from head to toe, freezing her from head to toe. She couldn't help but tremble. Ever since they were children, she and her big brother had never disobeyed their father's wishes. They'd never even had the right to question their father's wishes. All they could do was obey. Obey. Seeing Chu Qingge's reaction, Duanmu Bei laughed coldly. What? Even His Majesty's orders can't compare to great General Chu's? I wouldn't dare. Chu Tianyin hastened to explain. Your Highness Crown Prince will set out for Western Zhou tomorrow. Everything will be done according to His Majesty and Emperor Tianhui's wishes. As he spoke, he gave Duanmu Bei a meaningful look. Duanmu Bei immediately recalled the treasure trove in the poison sect's forbidden grounds and stopped arguing with Chu Qingge. Then that's good. Have her prepare well. Duanmu Bei had already left, but Chu Qingge was still frozen in place. Her eyes were empty and filled with despair. Chu Tianyin ignored her and went to pack up their luggage. After a long time, Chu Qingge finally spoke up, her voice choked with sobs. Big brother, is father angry because I didn't listen to his words and provoked Han Yunxi? Chu Tianyin paused for a long time before he replied, I don't know, but don't worry. I'll always stay in the capital with you even after you marry over. No matter how stupid Chu Qingge was, she could still smell a conspiracy. Big brother, just what are you and father planning? If you have any questions, you can ask father yourself when you get back. Chu Tianyin looked like a gentle older brother, but he was ruthless to the extreme. Go pack up. We'll leave tomorrow. After he was done, he ignored Chu Qingge and left the room to instruct his attendants. Keep an eye on the young miss. If she escapes, you'll be the ones to blame. Han Yunxi was in a great mood after winning against Chu Qingge. She was about to leave the palace when she turned around and headed for the imperial physician courtyard. With her part-time job as an imperial physician, The Imperial Physician Courtyard had become her free medicine warehouse. She was actually quite grateful to Emperor Tianhui. She assumed that Gu Beiyue was still in the courtyard, but nobody knew where he'd gone after asking around. Han Yunxi left after getting her medicine. She had no idea that Lil Thing had snuck in at the same time she left the Imperial Physician Courtyard. After its experience at the Medical Materials Association, Lil Thing was especially cautious. Fortunately, the Imperial Physician Courtyard was large enough that there were multiple doors. Few people had time to stare at the floor. After entering, Lil Thing sniffed around before heading straight for the Imperial Pharmacy behind the Imperial Physician Courtyard. Don't assume that it was here to steal medicine. As gluttonous as it was, it actually hurried through the pharmacy without even looking at the ingredients. In the end, it stopped in front of a small room in the back courtyard. The air was filled with the fragrance of herbs. However, it could still easily distinguish the unique scent from the herbal fragrance that filled the courtyard. It was a faint herbal fragrance, with a hint of vanilla. Only people who'd been taking medicine since childhood would have such a scent. Only a nose as sensitive as Lil Thing's could sniff it out. It stood up with its head held high, thoroughly enjoying the scent in the air. Its large tail swayed back and forth as it reveled in the scent. It really liked this scent. If it could die in this scent, what a happy thing it'd be. As it sniffed, it couldn't help but start dancing, spinning in circles on one paw as if lost in a beautiful dream. Suddenly, there was a creak as the door opened. Lil Thing gave a start before dodging to the side. The person who came out was none other than the head Imperial Physician, Gu Beiyue. Chi. Lil Thing was so happy that it kept making noises. Gu Beiyue looked back and was surprised to see Lil Thing. How did it find its way here? When Lil Thing saw Gu Beiyue looking at it, it grew even happier and scurried onto his shoulder. Chi. It didn't know what to say, but after a few squeaks, it jumped down and scuttled back into the room. Gu Beiyue's gentle eyes flashed with curiosity as he followed it in. Who knew that when Lil Thing saw him enter, it actually stood still by the door. Gu Beiyue squatted down and gently asked, "Lil Thing, what's wrong?" Lil Thing looked at him and scratched at the door. Gu Beiyue didn't understand and gently stroked its little head. "What are you trying to do? I don't understand." Lil Thing wanted to close the door, but it couldn't push it. It wished it could return to its original form so that it could push the door down with just a slap. However, it didn't want to change. Its original form was too fat and not cute at all. It became anxious and used its small body to push the door. "Lil Thing, you want to close the door, right?" Gu Beiyue finally understood. He laughed as he scooped it up in his hand and closed the door. Lil Thing sat in his palm and looked at his smile in a daze. How could there be a man who smiled so gently? It was like the spring breeze in April, blowing into one's heart. After closing the door, Gu Beiyue found a place to sit down and asked seriously, "Lil Thing, why did you come looking for me?" That's right. Why did Lil Thing suddenly come looking for Gu Beiyue? Chapter 333. Why was Little Thing looking for Gu Beiyue? Little Thing did not understand what Gu Beiyue was saying, but it was listening very seriously. Little Thing liked gentle voices. Gu Beiyue used his finger to scratch Little Thing's chin, teasing it. Little Thing immediately giggled. Of course, being happy was just being happy, but it would not forget the important things. Very quickly, Little Thing jumped down from Gu Beiyue's palm. It landed on the ground, opened its mouth, and spat out a huge luminous pearl. Seeing this, the calm Gu Beiyue was shocked. Luminous pearl. Wasn't this the treasure that Qin Wangrong gave to the Empress Dowager as a gift? One must know that the Empress Dowager had thrown a tantrum several times over the missing items, causing the entire harem to be on tenterhooks. Who would have thought that Little Thing was the one who stole it? But why did it spit out the luminous pearl in front of him? Gu Beiyue was puzzled. But who knew that Little Thing would spit out 4 more treasures? They were the blood lingji that the Crown Prince gave to the Empress Dowager, the 1,000-year-old fleece flower that the Minister of Personnel, Lord Su, gave as a tribute, the purple summer flower that Marquis Pingnan gave, and the 100-year-old scorpion tail that General Ning asked someone to give. Apart from the luminous pearl, these 4 herbs were the most precious among the Empress Dowager's birthday gifts. Little Thing was worthy of being a poisonous beast. It really knew what was good for it. These things that the Empress Dowager had been frantically looking for suddenly appeared in the palace. If it was anyone else, they would be nervous. However, other than being curious, Gu Beiwei was still calm and collected. He picked up the treasures and carefully examined them. Although they were spat out from Little Thing's mouth, they were all very clean. Little Thing jumped up and waved its claws at Gu Beiwei, as if it was asking for credit. Gu Beiwei helplessly smiled. Little Thing, are these for me? I'm not your master. Who knew that Little Thing would suddenly spit out a purple walnut into Gu Beiwei's palm? Ji. It barked at him a few times, then quietly retreated to the side and sat down. The purple walnut was a very common medicine. Compared to a pile of treasures, it was negligible. However, it was precisely this thing that shocked Gu Beiwei. Blood Lingji, 1,000-year fleeceflower root, 100-year scorpion tail, purple summer flower, moon night pearl powder, and the most common purple walnut. It was the best and fastest way to treat a great injury to one's vitality. Even a 6th-grade divine doctor might not know about this prescription, but a 5th-grade divine doctor like Gu Beiwei was very clear about it. His medical skills were far beyond the 5th grade, and his familiarity with medicinal herbs was far beyond what he had shown. He looked at Lil Thing with great interest. His slightly pale face seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, and there was a hint of wickedness in his gentleness. He was especially charming, and Lil Thing was mesmerized by him. I really like this young master. What to do? The little thing was embarrassed by his stare and lowered its head shyly. Gu Beiwei chuckled. Hehe. Lil Thing, so you really do recognize me. Lil Thing didn't understand what Gu Beiwei was saying, but it knew that Gu Beiwei understood why it had given him such a large pile of things. It quickly hopped over and landed on a pile of medicinal herbs. It stepped here and there, urging Gu Beiwei to quickly boil the medicine and drink it. Gu Beiwei kept the medicinal herbs into the cabinet at the side, but Lil Thing still wasn't willing. Before Gu Beiwei closed the cabinet door, it hurriedly scurried over and bit out all the medicinal herbs, throwing them to the side of the medicine stove. Gu Beiwei helplessly smiled. I understand. Lil Thing wanted him to immediately boil the medicine and drink it. Indeed, leaving these things anywhere in the palace wouldn't be as safe as leaving them in his stomach. This small room was where Gu Beiwei usually rested. There was everything in the room. He quickly washed the medicinal herbs clean and was about to bring the night moon pearl over. Who knew that Lil Thing had already silently crushed the night moon pearl and brought the innermost and most essential pearl powder to Gu Beiwei. The rest of the pearl powder was naturally eaten by Lil Thing. You know better than your master. Gu Beiwei smiled very gently. Just like this, under Lil Thing's supervision, Gu Beiwei used several kinds of precious medicinal herbs and the night moon pearl powder to boil a small bowl of tonic medicine. He drank it all under Lil Thing's urging. Lil Thing originally wanted to stay a little longer, but it was helpless. Not long after Gu Beiwei finished drinking the medicine, someone came looking for him outside. He gently stroked Lil Thing's head with a smile. Thanks, Lil Thing. Lil Thing rubbed against his warm fingers, reluctant to part with him, but quickly escaped through the window. If it stayed out for too long, Mama Yunxi would worry about it. Actually, Han Yunxi wasn't worried about Lil Thing at all. At this moment, a guest had arrived at the Duke of Qin's estate. Actually, there were so many people who wanted to visit the Duke of Qin's estate that they could line up from the gates all the way to the outskirts of the capital. Only a few were invited inside, and most of them were invited by Han Yunxi. His Highness Duke of Qin usually didn't receive visitors. Today, the visitor was the young General Mu Qinggu. As soon as he arrived, Han Yunxi asked him what he wanted, but he simply said he was passing by and wanted to ask for a cup of tea. Since he'd already said so, Han Yunxi couldn't ask too many questions. Thus, she steeped some good tea for him. Han Yunxi might have saved Mu Qingwu's life and considered him a friend, but they had nothing to talk about. The two of them exchanged a few words before falling into an awkward silence. If she didn't compare herself to Long Fei Yi, Han Yunqi wasn't a talkative person either. She'd rather not talk than take the initiative to start a conversation. Mu Qingguo, on the other hand, was a military man who spoke to the point and didn't know how to make small talk. Thus, even if Han Yunqi, as the host, tried to find a few topics to talk about, Mu Qingguo killed them off with a few words. Han Yunqi couldn't continue. For example, Han Yunqi asked, "I heard there's been a riot at the three-way battlefield recently. What's going on?" Mu Qingguo replied, "It's just a rumor." Han Yunqi continued, "There was a riot at the three-way battlefield in the past and many people died? How did it happen?" Mu Qingguo replied, "It's all in the past. There's no need to talk about it." Han Yunqi didn't ask any more questions. However, it was fine if Mu Qingguo didn't want to talk about it, but he didn't leave either. He looked even more awkward than Han Yunqi. Finally, Han Yunqi spoke, "Young general, you must have a reason for coming here. Just say it." Mu Qingguo looked embarrassed. After hesitating for a moment, he actually stood up. "Esteemed Wang Fei, this one is here to ask for a cup of tea. It's getting late, so this one won't disturb you any longer. Farewell." Strange. Han Yunqi was puzzled, but didn't ask him to stay. "All right, men, send the young general off." Mu Qingguo had clearly walked to the door, but he suddenly turned back. Han Yunqi knitted her brows at the sight. This man had always been straightforward, so what was wrong with him today? What was it that made him so embarrassed to speak? If it was Gu or Gu Beiyue, Han Yunqi would definitely laugh at him. However, in front of Mu Qingguo, she was more polite. She smiled and didn't say anything. Mu Qingguo took deep breaths as he walked over. He was so hesitant that he became irritated. He hated hesitant people the most. Finally, he walked in front of Han Yunqi and knelt down on one knee. "Esteemed Wang Fei, this one has a request." Han Yunqi could guess that Mu Qingguo had a request, but she couldn't guess what it was that made Mu Qingguo so hesitant and afraid to speak. "Young general, quickly get up. If you have something to say, just say it." Aside from admiration, Han Yunqi also had her own selfish motives towards Mu Qingguo. Before she'd gained a firm foothold in the Duke of Qin's estate and the capital, Mu Qingguo could be considered her support and one of her only connections. Now she hoped that she could win over the support of General Mu's estate for the Long Fei Yi. "This one is truly ashamed to keep troubling esteemed Wang Fei." Mu Qingguo didn't get up. "Young general is treating me as an outsider." Han Yunqi personally helped him to his feet. Young general has always been a straightforward man. This Wang Fei looks down on being so coy. Mu Qingguo grew anxious before he finally spoke the truth. "Esteemed Wang Fei, there's only 1 month left until the half-year deadline." Han Yunqi suddenly realized. The half-year deadline referred to Emperor Tianhui's order for Mu Qingguo to gather 300,000 taels of military pay and 200,000 dan of rations within half a year. Otherwise, he'd be demoted and investigated. What was the point of asking her for help? She had money, but that was from Long Fei Ye's gold card. She could swipe it, but she couldn't see any real gold or silver. As for the 200,000 dan of rations, that was even more difficult. Even if she had the money, she couldn't buy that much in a short period of time. Han Yunqi mulled it over before she suddenly realized something. Her eyes lit up. She was about to speak when Mu Qingguo beat her to it. "Esteemed Wang Fei, this one wants to ask His Highness Duke of Qin for a few pointers, but he's already refused me 3 times. Mu Qingguo's lips curved into a self-mocking smile as he spoke. This one hasn't even seen His Highness Duke of Qin's face. Han Yunqi was astonished. Mu Qingguo had asked to see Long Fei Yi 3 times already, but he'd been refused each time? She didn't know about this at all. In other words, Mu Qingguo had tried his best before, but he hadn't asked her for help from the start. That was more like his style. "Did His Highness personally refuse to see you?" Han Yunqi asked seriously. "I'm sure that His Highness can guess why this one sought him out," Mu Qingguo said helplessly. Han Yunqi was secretly bewildered. Didn't Long Fei Yi want to gain the support of General Mu's estate? General Mu's estate wasn't something that other powers could compare to. General Mu's estate represented Tianning's greatest military strength. Just then, she'd been pleasantly surprised that she could recommend Mu Qingguo to Long Feiyi, who knew that he'd long rejected him. Young General, 200,000 dan of grain is indeed. Han Yunxi pretended to be in a difficult position. But Mu Qingguo only said, Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness Duke of Qin has a large estate in Jiangnan. This year there's been a drought everywhere. Only Jiangnan has a bountiful harvest. What? Long Feiyi has an estate in Jiangnan? Han Yunxi couldn't help but stroke the crystal bracelet on her wrist. Just how many things did Long Feiyi have that she didn't know about? So this guy was actually this rich. Since that was the case, why did Long Feiyi refuse Mu Qingguo? While Han Yunxi was puzzling over this, Long Feiyi returned. Chapter 334. Long Feiyi rarely returned home at this time. Han Yunxi was surprised when she saw Long Feiyi walk in. Mu Qingguo was both nervous and happy. He never thought that he would be able to see the Duke of Qin directly today. Although he felt guilty for asking Han Yunxi for help again and again, he couldn't help but feel happy. His Highness Duke of Qin had come at the right time. He hurriedly knelt on one knee. This general greets your Highness Duke of Qin. Long Feiyi glanced at him. You may rise. Although Long Feiyi was usually cold, Han Yunxi could faintly sense that something was wrong with him today. He didn't seem to be in a good mood. Han Yunxi was hesitating on how to help Mu Qingguo when Long Feiyi sat down and asked cold, Is there something else you need? Han Yunxi and Mu Qingguo both felt awkward. Long Feiyi sat there steadily. If this wasn't an order to chase them away, then what was it? With Long Feiyi's intelligence, he would definitely be able to guess Mu Qingguo's intentions. His attitude was undoubtedly a disguised rejection. Han Yunxi was already hesitant about what to say. Now she was even more hesitant. Of course, Mu Qingguo wasn't an idiot. If the Duke of Qin had such an attitude in front of Qin Wangfei, then this matter was probably hopeless. Although he was disappointed, Mu Qingguo still smiled. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wangfei, this general will take his leave. Unexpectedly, Han Yunxi spoke up to ask him to stay. Wait! Long Feiyi calmly glanced at her from the corner of his eye as he sipped his tea. Young general, please sit, Han Yunxi said calmly. Mu Qingguo had come to find Han Yunxi because he had no other choice. He knew that Han Yunxi was favored, but he didn't know how much she was favored or whether the rumors were true. Mu Qingguo only knew one thing. No matter how much Han Yunxi was favored by Long Feiyi, Long Feiyi's personality wouldn't change his attitude. Tianning's Duke of Qin wasn't a man who would allow a woman to influence his decisions. Seeing Long Feiyi's silence, Mu Qingguo sat down in a guest seat on the side. Your Highness, the young general came to borrow grain from your Highness. Han Yunxi had used the word borrow so skillfully that even Mu Qingguo felt admiration for her. Borrow? Then when does the young general plan to return it? Long Feiyi asked. Mu Qingguo and Han Yunxi rejoiced. They thought they had a chance. But Long Feiyi's next words were, Young general, since last year, Ning's regions have been suffering from drought and famine. Are you aware of this? Mu Qingguo nodded seriously. This general knows. Could it be that the young general plans to borrow grain from this prince to relieve the famine? Long Feiyi asked again. Mu Qingguo was at a loss for words. If the young general plans to borrow grain from this prince to relieve the famine, then there's no need to return it. If the young general plans to borrow grain from this prince to supplement the soldiers' rations, before Long Feiyi could finish, Mu Qingguo stood up. This general won't lend. Many thanks to your Highness Duke of Qin, this general understands. It wasn't that Mu Qingguo didn't know about the famine, but the court had already sent out grain from the national treasury several times. Not only did they send out grain from the national treasury, but they also transferred a large sum of silver from the national treasury to buy grain from the major grain merchants in Jiangnan. Reports from the disaster areas had been full of good news recently. It wasn't just Mu Qinggu, but everyone else believed that the famine was no longer a big problem. Emperor Tianhui had asked him to collect grain because all of the grain in the national treasury had been used to relieve the famine. Mu Qingwu's expression was solemn. He knew that His Highness Duke of Qin's words meant that the famine had yet to be resolved. Then where did the grain in the national treasury go? The imperial uncle, Li Ziyuan, had always been in charge of disaster relief. Where had all the grain and silver gone? Mu Qinggu immediately bid farewell and left. Han Yunxi looked at Long Fei Yi and suddenly didn't know what to say. I acted on my own initiative, she said mildly. She never expected someone as cold as Long Fei Yi to care about the famine victims. She prided herself on her intelligence, but she'd lost count of how many times she'd felt foolish in front of this man. General Mu was such a fat piece of meat, but he hadn't seized the chance to help. There had to be a reason for that. Long Fei Yi actually nodded. Han Yunxi lowered her head pitifully like a child who'd done something wrong. But Long Fei Yi only said, starting tomorrow, you'll be in charge of everything in the estate. Although Han Yunxi was already the true mistress of the Duke of Qin's estate, Long Fei Yi still had the final say in many matters. Han Yunxi was overwhelmed by the favor. Your Highness, your lordship needs to make a trip to the Tang clan. I'll leave immediately, Long Fei Yi explained. This was probably the first time he'd told Han Yunxi about his whereabouts, so Han Yunxi wasn't used to it. Oh, she mumbled again. Besides do you know how to say anything else? Long Fei Yi's tone was cold. Han Yunxi immediately said something else, but she only said, anything else? Long Fei Yi asked again. Han Yunxi didn't even have an She looked doubtfully at Long Fei Yi and suddenly felt that Long Fei Yi was very different from usual. She couldn't put her finger on it. Was it because she'd talked too much? Han Yunxi was about to speak when Long Fei Yi stood up. Be careful. If there's anything you need, find Chu Shifeng and Zhao Mama. Everything had been fine before, but Long Fei Yi's words suddenly filled her heart with sadness. Han Yunxi finally realized that Long Fei Yi had been by her side the entire time. Have you packed your luggage? I'll help you? She felt like she should do something. Long Fei Yi hesitated before agreeing. Just bring a few sets of clothes. I'll wait for you at the door. All right. Han Yunxi immediately ran towards the hibiscus courtyard, narrowly missing bumping into Zhao Mama as soon as she entered. Aya, esteemed Wang Fei, what's wrong with you? Zhao Mama was puzzled. Although her mistress wasn't from a noble family, she was always elegant and calm. His Highness is going on a long journey, so I'm helping him pack his luggage. He's waiting at the door, Han Yunxi explained as she ran towards the sleeping quarters. Zhao Mama was stunned. She'd served His Highness Duke of Qin for so many years, but she'd never helped him pack his luggage. He never liked other people touching his things, especially his clothes. Zhao Mama chased after them to the door and saw Su Xiaoyu preparing to go in with Han Yunxi. She immediately shouted, "Wait!" Han Yunxi and Su Xiaoyu were both frightened. Su Xiaoyu asked curiously, "Zhao Mama, what's wrong?" "Little Yuer, hurry back to Leisurely Cloud Pavilion. I forgot to turn off the fire while making millet soup. Hurry and go take a look." Zhao Mama's face was full of anxiety. Su Xiaoyu looked at Zhao Mama suspiciously, but didn't move. "Why aren't you going? My old bones can't run. Otherwise, why would I order you around?" Zhao Mama urged unhappily. Oh. Su Xiaoyu hurriedly ran off. Han Yunxi was afraid that Long Fei Yi would wait for too long. After figuring out what was going on, she went into the room. Zhao Mama strode after her. "Esteemed Wang Fei, don't let little Yuer come here so often in the future." "Aren't you here too?" Han Yunxi joked. "This old servant also rarely comes here. His Highness doesn't like it. This old servant is serious." Zhao Mama was very helpless. Her mistress was such a shrewd person. So why did she always like to be muddle-headed when it came to His Highness Duke of Qin? When would she be able to understand His Highness Duke of Qin's preferences? "Amen, I'll remember. Actually, I also rarely come here." Han Yunshi said mildly. Very soon, Han Yunshi reached the changing room. Next to the bedroom was another large changing room. Han Yunshi had noticed it on her first day here, but after a year had passed, she discovered that this fellow still had the same few sets of clothes. There wasn't even a full wardrobe. Han Yunshi couldn't help but think of Long Fei Ye's daily life. He only had his personal bodyguard Chu Shifeng by his side. There were no servant girls or mama. There was no one to take care of his daily chores, including food and lodging when he was away from home. Han Yunshi nimbly packed up their luggage and went back to the leisurely cloud pavilion to pack her own things. She wanted to go with him to the Tang clan. It was like a trip that could be taken at any time. Unfortunately, Han Yunshi was rejected. She smiled and said, "Your Highness, why don't you take me to the Tang clan to broaden my horizons? Stay at home properly. Don't run around." Long Fei Yi was probably rejecting her. "Oh!" Han Yunshi didn't say any more. Long Fei Yi mounted his horse and left without another word. Han Yunshi watched him until his figure disappeared completely from sight. Then she sighed softly in disappointment. Was this fellow going to the Tang clan for something important? Was it because of Tang Zijin's visit last time? She'd asked Zhao Mama about the Tang clan, but the latter said she didn't know much either. "Esteemed Wang Fei, don't be sad. His Highness doesn't like that place, so he won't take you," Zhao Mama comforted her. "Why not?" Han Yunshi asked seriously. "This servant knows that His Highness never said a word when he went to the Tang clan when he was young. This servant hasn't been there either," Zhao Mama replied honestly. Zhao Mama had her ways. Her words made Han Yunshi feel much better. She smiled broadly and said, "Go back. Then, stay at home for a few days." Long Fei Yi galloped out of the city by himself. Actually, Han Yunshi wasn't wrong. He really was in a bad mood. He made another trip to Medicine Ghost Valley and fought 30 rounds with Gu Qisha. Even with Gu Qisha's poisons, he still had the upper hand. Just as he was about to capture Gu Qisha cut the serpent fruit in half and threatened to destroy it if he came any closer. Gu Qisha was someone who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. Naturally, he wouldn't dare destroy the serpent fruit, so Long Fei Yi had no choice but to retreat. Meanwhile, Tang Li had already made multiple attempts to escape from the Tang clan, but to no avail. Long Fei Yi had no choice but to make a move himself. He also had Tang Li bring along the torrential pear blossom rain so that they could go to Medicine Ghost Valley together to deal with Gu Qisha. Long Fei Ye's journey lasted for an entire day and night without rest. The Tang clan headquarters were quite a distance away from Tianning's capital. If Long Fei Yi didn't get there in time, Tang Li would probably be married and have children by now. That night, the galloping horses finally came to a stop. The desolate outskirts were deathly still. Long Fei Yi drank a few mouthfuls of cold water by the stream and was about to continue on his journey when he suddenly felt the luggage tied to his horse's back. He opened it and saw that there was a small packet of pastries and a small packet of black tea hidden in his clothes. In that instant, the corners of his mouth, which had been cold and solemn all day, suddenly softened. He did not eat it, but hid it in his sleeve and continued on his way. Long Fei Yi was gone for a few days. Han Yunshi really did stay at home for a few days, but she had no choice but to go out soon enough. Something had happened to Gu Beiyue. Chapter 335. Han Yunshi had been studying the beauty's blood at home the entire time, but the Heavenly Palace's Imperial Dr. Chun suddenly came to see her. He said that Gu Beiyue had been kneeling on the steps of the Heavenly Palace for 3 days and 3 nights because he couldn't cure the Empress Dowager's insomnia. Han Yunshi felt terrible when she heard this news and almost rushed into the palace. It had to be known that it had been raining for the past 3 days and it was early winter. Not to mention how cold the rain was. Just kneeling on the white jade steps of the Heavenly Palace for a while would be unbearable for a person's knees. She couldn't imagine how weak Gu Beiyue's medicine pot body would be. Insomnia! Han Yunshi narrowed her eyes with a dangerous expression. She knew that the Empress Dowager was here for her, or more accurately, for the medicine fan. She wanted the medicine fan but didn't dare ask her for it. She actually treated Gu Beiwei like this. It was truly despicable. It was fine if she used Gu Beiwei to threaten her, but she actually made Gu Beiwei kneel for 3 days and 3 nights before telling her. Han Yunxi became angrier the more she thought about it. She suddenly swept the teacup on the table to the ground and it hit Imperial Dr. Chen's foot. She never thought that Imperial Dr. Chen would still seek death. He pretended to be anxious. Esteemed Princess Consort, please calm down. Esteemed Princess Consort, this official secretly came to tell you this. Please calm down and think of a way to save Imperial Dr. Gu. If it was another Imperial Doctor who came to tell her this, perhaps they really did want to save Gu Beiwei. However, this Imperial Dr. Chen that Han Yunxi didn't know at all was clearly sent by the Empress Dowager. Han Yunxi angrily glared at Imperial Dr. Chen, but he quickly said, Esteemed Princess Consort, the Empress Dowager already has insomnia and has been unable to sleep these past few days because she lost something. Her temper is very bad, so I don't know how she will torture Imperial Dr. Gu. Is that so? Han Yunxi suddenly picked up the teacup filled with tea and fiercely threw it at Imperial Dr. Chen. Then why did you only come now? It's been 3 days and 3 nights. Why did you only come now? What do you mean? Dr. Chen was hit in the stomach and his face changed from the pain. But he still pretended, Princess Consort, please calm your anger. This official hasn't been able to leave the palace for the past few days. Can't leave the palace? What a coincidence. Han Yunxi sneered. That's right, Princess Consort, this official and Imperial Physician Gu have been together for many years. Before Imperial Dr. Chen finished speaking, Han Yunxi took action. She picked up almost everything on the table and threw it at Imperial Dr. Chen. Years of what? You still have the nerve to say that Empress Dowager asked you to come, right? Tell me what's going on right now. Otherwise, Han Yunxi paused for a moment before shouting, Men, close the door and release the dog. Steward Luo raised a wolf dog. It was said that other than the Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei, it was the worst dog to provoke in the Duke of Qin's residence. Soon a large wolf dog was brought in. It had sharp fangs and was drooling. Dr. Chen was scared and immediately kneeled down. Princess Consort, please calm your anger. This official will speak. I will tell you everything. Han Yunxi let out a sigh of relief and calmed herself down. Before she blindly entered the palace, she had to understand the situation first. Otherwise, how could she fight the Empress Dowager? Ever since the medicine fan appeared at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, she had been waiting for the Empress Dowager to make a move. The Empress Dowager was a smart person, so naturally she wouldn't directly ask her for it. If the Empress Dowager directly asked her for it, she would have plenty of reasons to refuse. For example, the medicine fan in her hand was an imitation, or the medicine fan had been used as medicine by her. If it was gone, the Empress Dowager wouldn't be able to do anything to her. She always knew that the Empress Dowager would make things difficult for her. But she never thought that the Empress Dowager would use Gu Beiwei as a target. Dr. Chen was so scared that he kept taking deep breaths. Han Yunxi did not have that kind of patience. So she coldly said, Why aren't you speaking yet? Princess Consort, the Empress Dowager's insomnia has always been this servant's prescription. Ever since the birthday banquet, the Empress Dowager has had Imperial Physician Gu perform acupuncture on her every night to help her sleep. Imperial Physician Gu said that there wouldn't be any side effects if he cooperated with this official's prescription, but the Empress Dowager secretly stopped taking her medicine 3 days ago. As a result, she began to feel pain all over her body, so she angrily punished Imperial Physician Gu. If he didn't see the large wolf dog's white fangs, Dr. Chen might not have said this. He wished that Gu Beiwei would die. Gu Beiwei had become the head of the hospital at such a young age, so no matter what faction in the palace tried to pull him in, not to mention the harem, there were many people in the hospital that wanted him to fall. The Empress Dowager sent you here? Han Yunxi coldly asked. Dr. Chen did not want to admit it, but he could only nod. What has the old lady prepared for me? Han Yunxi asked again. This official does not know. The Empress Dowager sent this official to report to the Princess Consort. Dr. Chun honestly replied, "Is Imperial Physician Gu still kneeling?" Han Yunshi continued to ask, "He's kneeling, he's kneeling." Dr. Chun didn't dare to say much, but Han Yunshi asked carefully, "He's been kneeling for 3 days and 3 nights. Has he changed his clothes? Has he eaten? Has he drunk? Has he been in the rain the entire time? Esteemed Wang Fei, you should hurry into the palace. This official is afraid that Imperial Physician Gu won't be able to hold on." Dr. Chun was afraid that the Empress Dowager would be dissatisfied if Han Yunshi was late. "All right, this Wang Fei will enter the palace immediately." Han Yunshi really did leave as she spoke, leaving Dr. Chun, Steward Luo, and the large wolf dog in the main hall. As soon as Han Yunshi left, Dr. Chun prepared to rise, but Steward Luo laughed and said, "Dr. Chun, esteemed Wang Fei hasn't told you to rise yet." When he finished, the large wolf dog even whimpered a few times. Dr. Chun wanted to cry, but had no tears. He could only kneel in place. This time, Han Yunshi wasn't only accompanied by Zhao Mama, but Chu Shifeng as well. Inside the carriage, Han Yunshi was deep in thought with her eyes closed, her delicate face filled with solemnity. Zhao Mama kept shooting looks at Chu Shifeng. She'd long disliked Imperial Physician Gu's visit to the estate to take esteemed Wang Fei's pulse. Judging from Zhao Mama's shrewd eyes, Imperial Physician Gu's gaze towards esteemed Wang Fei must be filled with affection. Chu Shifeng was too lazy to pay Zhao Mama any attention. In his heart, there was no one else in the world who could match His Highness Duke of Qin's charms. Esteemed Wang Fei was so love-struck that she'd probably never set her eyes on another man in this lifetime. "Esteemed Wang Fei, what are you planning to do about this? Don't blame this old servant for not reminding you, but His Highness isn't in the capital. We can't afford to provoke those two in the palace," Zhao Mama said seriously. Whether it was the Empress Dowager or Emperor Tianhui, they had plenty of ways to make things difficult for esteemed Wang Fei. Their noble statuses alone were enough to suppress everything. The only reason esteemed Wang Fei had so few troubles was because His Highness was standing in front of her. Without sufficient assurance, neither the Empress Dowager nor Emperor Tianhui would touch His Highness lightly, especially after the birthday banquet. This could be said to be courteous, but it could also be said to be fearful. Han Yunshi didn't speak, but her lips pursed into a tight line. Her face was filled with displeasure. Soon enough, even Chu Shifeng couldn't help but remind her, "Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness said to have you stay well at home." Only then did Han Yunshi speak, her voice cold. "Don't worry, I won't be the one in trouble. It'll only be someone else." Zhao Mama and Chu Shifeng exchanged glances. This mistress of theirs was just as cold as His Highness Duke of Qin. Was she that scary when she was ruthless? Or had she been influenced by His Highness Duke of Qin after spending so much time with him? Very soon, Han Yunshi arrived at the Palace of Heaven and Earth. As soon as she entered, she saw Gu Beiyue's thin, lonely back. White jade steps, red walls, and green roof tiles. There was no one in sight except for him kneeling on the steps, his black hair and white robes still dripping with water. Han Yunshi clenched her fists as her heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe. She wanted to rush over and protect him, but she couldn't do that in a place like this. She had to keep her cool. "Old Empress Dowager, this time I, Han Yunshi, will make you regret it until your intestines turn green." Han Yunshi took a deep breath and strode over. She stopped by Gu Beiyue's side for less than a second before leaving without a word. But Gu Beiyue only murmured, "Esteemed Wang Fei, this official is fine. You mustn't be impulsive." Gu Beiyue's voice was so weak that it was barely audible. Han Yunshi's heart ached even more. She didn't dare to look at him, afraid that she'd really lose all reason. Gu Beiyue was such a good doctor and gentle person. What crime had he committed? "Don't worry, I'll come out very quickly. I'll take you away as soon as I'm out." Han Yunshi's tone was resolute. She didn't stay any longer as she strode into the room. Inside the room, the Empress Dowager was lying down on the chaise lounge. Seeing Han Yunshi and the others come in, Nurse Gue quickly made a shushing gesture, indicating for them to be quiet. She's been tossing and turning all night and has just fallen asleep, Nurse Gue whispered. Tossing and turning all night? Han Yunchi beat her at her own game and pretended that she didn't know anything. Isn't it the same old problem? Insomnia. Dr. Gu gave her acupuncture and her entire body is in pain. Nurse Gue explained. No wonder Dr. Gu is kneeling outside, Han Yunchi said as she sat down on the side. Esteemed Wang Fei, the Empress Dowager might sleep for a bit longer, Nurse Gue whispered again. How long was a bit longer? Every second she slept, Gu Beiwei would have to kneel outside for a second longer. Let her sleep, I'll wait. Han Yunchi's smile was especially beautiful, but her eyes flashed with a cold light. Nurse Gue stood guard by the chaise lounge, Nurse Zhao by Han Yunchi's side, and Chu Tianyin outside. The room was silent. Unexpectedly, the Empress Dowager couldn't sit still after a while. Her body was itchy all over, but she couldn't pinpoint the exact spot. Her original plan was to lie down until night and have Han Yunchi wait, but she couldn't take it anymore and sat up to scratch the itch. Han Yunchi rose with a slight smile. Esteemed Empress Dowager, you're awake? The Empress Dowager was itchy, but she couldn't take it anymore. She smiled back. Yunchi's here? How long have you been here? Why didn't you wake me up? I just arrived. Yunchi heard that you've been suffering from insomnia recently, so I came to the palace to take a look. Han Yunchi took the initiative to sit by the Empress Dowager's side. Those who didn't know would think they were intimate. This is an old illness of mine. It's gotten worse recently. The Empress Dowager propped up her head with one hand and sighed helplessly. How is it so bad that even Imperial Physician Gu can't do anything about it? Han Yunchi asked seriously. This Gu Beiwei, after treating me with acupuncture for a few days, I'm aching all over. I don't even know how he became the head Imperial Physician. The Empress Dowager's face was full of anger, but Han Yunchi only said, Esteemed Empress Dowager, Yunchi didn't even know your insomnia was so serious. Yunchi has something good here. It's specially made to treat insomnia. Hearing Han Yunchi's words, the Empress Dowager's eyes flashed with shrewd light. She knew that it wouldn't be easy to ask Han Yunchi for something. Using Gu Beiwei as an example would be much easier. She continued to act. What good thing? Hurry and let me see it. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.